Started off with a bit, now I got coin. I see where y'all going. Been poppin' since Web 1, hella hopes on Web 2. I was living a dream, now I'm on Web 3. And it is what it seems, topping the pyramid schemes, I'm telling you. I'll sell you a percentage on Nebula. Shout out to Vince, he'll set it up.
Surfing on the web and I'm shooting at 3. I've been goated when I got my G. I'm an alien boy from a different planet, yeah. So I got my drink, I'm riding in the 1920s Model T Ford. Call her Era Lord. Call me Levi, playing on the keys, boy. And I'm about to put my gloves on. If I said it, then I meant that. Yeah, I like that one, I'm about to get that. Crash that whip for the drumsticks, whiplash. I'm about to get them all. Are you with that? In a white boat, surrounded by blue. I want one, but I got a cop too. I wanna fly high in the sky, arms out wide, trying to soar from a bird's eye view. I'm on fire, Ricky, Bobby, cracking the pavement, Whitney, Bobby. I'm a Saki bomb, Hiroshima, Nagasaki. Bruce Wayne been a dog, and I keep it 101, cause I'm feeling kinda spotty. You sipping on some rock, and I'm sipping on octane. The only thing around my neck is the blockchain.
Now I got coin. I see where y'all going. Been poppin' since Web 1, hella hopes on Web 2. I was living a dream, now I'm on Web 3. And it is what it seems, topping the pyramid schemes, I'm telling you. I'll sell you a percentage on Nebula. Shout out to Vince, he'll set it up.
NFT, Twitter, blockchain. Seeing with the ghosts and we ballin' like the Brown James. Crypto. We can make a trade, get the memo. Reviews not falling for the FOMO. Listening to Coffee with Captain. You know we worldwide, they loco. I ain't never gonna stop rapping. Orlando, yeah, we working magic. We rocking Ethereum entities. I just went and caught me a half base. Man, I got a shout out
Started
to
off with a bit, now I got coin. I see where y'all going. Been poppin' since Web 1, hella hopes on Web 2. I was living a dream, now I'm on Web 3. And it is what it seems, topping the pyramid schemes, I'm telling you. I'll sell you a percentage on Nebula. Shout out to Vince, he'll set it up.
Freaking the more to choose one, but they got knowledge to move, son. I'm shocking in shades with my brother in suits, yeah, them blues is coming. Even though it's hard to pick, eeny, mighty, mo, soda on the mix, no biting lips, it's time to go. Index number 1, no thumbs up, you gotta scroll. Looking at the ghost in studio, it's time to go. Had a helmet on by myself until I met a mask that wanted to have a face off. Had to bring my chainsaw, full tank of gas in the ride with my brakes off. I'm A1, but a different kind of steak sauce.
Welcome to Coffee with Captain, powered by ApeCoin, where we dive into all things crypto, NFTs, Web3, and cutting-edge technology. Remember, nothing here is financial advice. Early-stage tech can be exceptionally volatile and risky. So grab your coffee and join Cap and Steve for today's conversation.
Welcome to the future.
Welcome to Coffee with Captain. GM. Thanks so much for joining us. If you haven't already done so, do us a favor. Drop us a GM in the chat down below, then head up top, smash that like, repost, a bookmark on today's space. We greatly appreciate it. Warms up the algo and lets everyone know we're here. Does us a solid while you're up there. Go smash those GMs in the YouTube streets, the abstract chat, anywhere and everywhere. We also got the X video feed live as well. You're going to want to tune into video this morning. I've got a special reveal, once in a lifetime opportunity to share something that after today, it probably heads to Goodwill. So actually, no, I'll leave it in the Web3 merch storage box / archives museums I have in my garage. But you're gonna want to check out the video feed today. As always, I'm Cap Jim. I'm a co-host Steve. Never any financial advice on the show. Crypto's risky, NFTs are risky, meme coins exception risky. Go to yes, it is actually a Calvin Klein t-shirt. Yeah, it is. Good eyes. I don't know if I can't read that on my own screen. So Von Prunton apparently better vision than myself. But never any financial advice on the show. It's all risky, except for when markets just rip. It's up only season, so just shove all in. Go cash out your 401ks, your IRAs, and just put it all. I'm kidding. Don't do that. But it is an exciting time to be here, and buckle up, pay attention, and it's time to lock in, folks. So if you haven't already done so, hit those reminders. Oh, my bad. The reminder for the rest of the week will be posted in about a half hour. Links are live, but no excuses. I got distracted with the war room and did not get the carousel out in time, and we got too close to showtime. So it'll go out probably like the bottom of the hour. I'll get that up, and we'll do the reminder then. But GM Steve, how you doing, sir? Good weekend?
Yeah, it was a solid weekend. Good weather here, so we hung out outside a lot, which is really nice. Had my mom over for Mother's Day, kind of hung out. My son's soccer team, actually, really crazy game. So because of Mother's Day and all the sports and everything, because if you want to see good parents, I can't remember if I said this on the show before. Join a travel team and you will see dedicated, locked-in parents. There is not an asshole in the bunch, not one of those like sort of crazy parents. And yeah, they were down 7-0, or I mean, they're down 3-0 with 7 minutes left in the game, and they ended up tying. So we left feeling like we won. They left with the tie feeling like they lost. So good weekend there to see our kids kind of fighting back. My son especially, he played really, really hard, which I appreciated. So that was a good thing to witness as well. So proud of him. Definitely enjoyed that activity. Also, do us a favor while you're out there, give us a like, a retweet, a comment on the room as we get it going. As mentioned, we're not ones to try and sell you tons of stuff, but we definitely appreciate all the love that you give us in all the different chats. GM over in the abstract chat, be epic out there. Machiavelli, Meta Kryptonians out there. We got Booching in the chat this morning. Mesh as always, feeling out there. I might give away some DGen passes to some people just to get more people in the war room from this crew.
Shout out to Be Epic, who just our most recent war room member. Long time coming. Love to see you in there. And also shout out to Monkey Zoo, who currently in Toronto. Monkey Zoo's UK based. So now finally realizing why it's called Coffee with Captain here on the Eastern Standard Time Zone. Also, I saw Sven out there. I think Sven's on the West Coast. I'm not really actually sure. I don't know where he lives, but I'm digging the Ape Chain blue logo. This is just a personal thing. It's not a shot at Mintify. I am not a fan of yellow. Probably my least favorite color, especially in branding. And I don't know why that is. You're more of a brand marketing brain than myself. Am I correct in thinking that yellow is not an optimal color?
I'm trying to think like who has yellow logos in general, but
I think of like Sprint Nextel, and that's maybe.
I mean, like it's just
bias using in.
I mean, I'm trying to think of anybody besides McDonald's.
Steelers,
I mean, McDonald's.
Google kind of, I guess, but there's just more. I don't view their logo as yellow at all.
Is Ferrari? Is Cheerios yellow? Shell. But like McDonald's is the big one. Best Buy. But probably Snapchat.
Yeah, the Snapchat's probably that's as far as in the age of digital virility, Snapchat just dunked on me there. Yeah, they win.
But that's it. I don't know. I don't really I mean, my favorite color is orange. I'm fine with yellow, but it's not really my jam. I never really thought about it. I'd have to look into it a little bit more in how that is. But no, I don't know. I
grew up with mentors brainwashed me that blues and greens were those are the soothing colors to the subconscious mind. You want to lead with blues and greens.
I think
never write red. Never, like if you're presenting, you're in front of a room, never use a red dry erase marker. Like I've done, I don't know, maybe 1,000 sales trainings in my life, but you just get made fun of because I would throw away the red markers. You buy a pack, I throw away the red ones, so only use blues, and black's fine, but yeah, never use red. Tells your subconscious mind to stop. Don't do this. Don't accomplish this goal.
Yeah, I mean it's a good I mean, respectfully I mean, red is a amazing color, by the way, especially in branding.
For branding, not for goal setting and teaching.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So I don't know about. I know in the branding colors thing, I think it's important when choosing your brand that it feels like it fits you, and there's something to be said about like that feeling you get when you look at a brand. I think a lot of that stuff is sort of junk science on that thing, on those things. I'd be curious to see what sort of studies are behind any of it. I do think it's a great opener to like toss a red marker away when you start a sales training. Like that's fun. I think that's pretty cool. So I think it's a good way to open. Like it's a good icebreaker. I don't know that there's validity to it. I am a
Pokemon's another good red and yellow one.
Ooh, Pokemon. That's a great call. Tons of red and branding though. Like red and branding, yeah. I could come up with. I mean, we're literally on YouTube right now. Let alone, I mean, you could go down the absolute. There's a laundry list of red branding that you could go down, but like there's but yeah, so I think like yellow maybe not as much in branding, not sure why. Tons of GM out there. Where's Brian saying junk science ? Yeah, I'm saying like, I don't know that the color of your logo is as important. Like we just talked about red being like a stop color, and like I know Cap was talking about in training and goal setting, but a lot of people are like, oh, red, that means stop, that's bad. Coca-Cola, YouTube, Netflix.
Yeah, I'm specifically referring to
Target
goal setting, and when you're attempting to convince your subconscious mind you're going to do something. You don't want to use reds, but very different in brand. It's a very loud color. It'll also get you pulled over. Red car is much more likely to get you pulled over.
And I'm trying to remember if that was statistically true when all was said and done too, because I want to say that we debunked that at Progressive as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like I'll double check, but like I used to run these data studies for PR, and one of them I checked on like, is a red car more likely to, have?
So I think for a while, car insurance would make it more expensive as red car. No, some insurance companies.
I think that was also a myth.
Yeah.
I got to double check, but it's sort of like there's the joke about people would be like, we used to make the comment where people would be like, oh, women are bad drivers. Haha. It's like, well, then why do we give them lower rates on car insurance? They're actually better drivers, right? Like there was that joke that went around. And so when we were like younger and there was the back in the day in the 90s when it was, do you remember how crazy it was? There was like literally a riddle where the mother was the doctor, and that was like mind blowing to people in the 90s. Like think about how far we've come from that respect. Where like there's old riddle for people who are like probably in the Zoomer crowd may not know this. In the old 90s, there's this riddle people told where it's like a son and a dad get in a car crash. The dad dies on impact. The son comes into the emergency room, and the doctor says, "I can't operate on this person. This is my son. How?" And people were like mind blown. And it was like the mother was the doctor was obviously the answer. That's a no-brainer in 2025. In 1995, people were like, oh, what a stumper. Oh, yeah. Like, it's like, that's how weird it is that like things were sort of gate kept to that degree. But in any case, I think there's a lot of like old adages that maybe aren't necessarily true about these sort of things. So I don't know. I'd have to look back into our old studies. Like it's possible, but I think like the red cars, I don't think that we gave higher rates on the car insurance for red cars, but I'd have to double check on that. Like I feel like we dispelled that myth, and there's a lot of myths out there. It's even like I want to say it's like you don't want your hands on 10 and 2, you want your hands on like either 9 and 3 or 11 and 1. You actually can get degloved in an accident on 10 and 2. So that was like the way people taught, but degloved, if you don't know what that is, I'm not going to say it, but it's exactly what it sounds like with your skin. Yeah, airbag, right? So I think like those things, like, so there's a lot of stuff that we worked on dispelling the myths too, but on that like bright and cheery note, give us a like, a retweet, a comment on the room. Again, appreciate the GMs out there. Always slow. Space has been slow lately. They did something with the algo that made them a little less discoverable. So that's always helpful. Bordo, Saka, Mel, all our good friends out there. Von Front and Monkey Zoo, as mentioned. Appreciate you, General Wags, Opportunist, Dobbins, Chief, Aspiring Nobody, Odeka, Wajda, Mesh out there as well. Clay, Teacher Katie, every single morning here. Big Bear, Das Scrub, all the good friends.
Also, before we get out of the quote open, congratulations to you fellow Ohioans looking to join. It's not only your states racing to the Bitcoin strategic reserve. It appears now that states are also racing to be the first to eliminate property taxes. I just see I got a screenshot from Ohio Friends that says petition. It's the I don't know, the news this morning, petition to eliminate property taxes. Ohio Attorney General approves proposal. So Florida and Ohio both looking to eliminate property taxes. Be a nice win.
Yeah, that would be a nice win because, I have this deal with my mortgage where it's not rolled into my pay. It's rolled like I pay it twice a year. So it's basically a check that I write twice a year personally. So taking that check out would be.
Is this a flex? Like Steve's doesn't need PMI?
No, it's not a flex. It's actually a pain in the ass. It's like because of like the way we did the rate, like we got a way lower rate at the time. We locked in at the perfect time. I don't remember, it was 10 years ago. So whatever the math on that is, but the rates were like historically low because we had cut all the rates because, we're coming out of the recession or whatever. So 10, 12 years ago when we got our house, things were pretty good, but like whatever it was, we're like pay our property taxes separately. And so anyway, long story short, that would be a raise for me. It would just be a raise in my pocket if we stopped paying property taxes.
So while we were talking, I did, and we'll move on here quickly. I know we got a lot to get through today. Happy Monday morning. Per my researcher, my research partner, GPT of chat says, not the first of his name, the 03 variety, says that the actually forget colors. While it does appear that possibly, on the colors, I got to read through this in real time, but it says that it's actually models. Like the Subaru BRZ is 17% of those drivers have a speeding ticket. Hyundai Genesis Coupes, Volkswagen Golfs. I don't know. Probably has junk signs.
Well, no. Well, here's the way to think of it. Because I'll stop you right there. I'll give you kind of some thoughts on this. yes, there are like when you
Higher
look,
power to weight, fun to drive marketing, attract risk tolerant owners.
well, this is the trick that you want to get not caught in. So part of that, sure, is like, yes, these owners might make a difference, but I think people reverse engineer things a little too much. I'll give you an example. If you own a Tesla, you pay higher insurance, not necessarily because you're a more dangerous driver, but because severity versus frequency. Whereas if you get in an accident, replacing parts. I'll give you an example. You remember how I'm going to get it fixed probably by a local body shop because it's just aesthetic. But you remember how my daughter's, so for people who missed it, my daughter's friend was walking home.
Your good deed going punished.
Yes. So my daughter I was driving my daughter home. We noticed her one friend was walking sort of on the like sidewalk by herself, which is like 2 miles from home, which is a long way home. I stopped up, grabbed her, picked her up, drove her home. She has a tricky house that has like this. It's weird. It's over a freeway bridge that goes above a freeway. So there's like median on the side of her house. And I bumped into it as I was pulling out. Totally my own fault for a self-inflicted wound. Well, it's on a Tesla. Not an expensive Tesla. We're talking like the $30,000, Model 3, whatever type thing. We went to get a quote to get the small aesthetic damage fixed. And they said it was going to be like, they're like high end. It could be as high as $5,500 to get this fixed. It is a bumper with some small aesthetic damage above the wheel. They've seen a picture of it. Now we're going to find a local body shop who will fix it probably for like $100, couple $100 and pull it out. I'm sure we'll have no problem with that. But it's because they're like, well, we got to do this with the engine, and we got to make sure that there's no sensor damage, and we got to make sure this. So a lot of times people see high prices and they're like, oh, so people who drive those cars are more dangerous. Usually what you're talking about here is that the parts of replacement on a thing like a BMW, the parts of replacement on a Mercedes are more expensive to source and get, especially if you go original factory parts. And so the cost of those becomes significant.
And noted in terms of insurance costs, I think though, in terms of the percentage of tickets, they're saying it's often like why these car brands that either higher power, fun to drive, younger demographics.
You're talking specifically about tickets.
Loud exhaust, big wings. So it's not really those luxury cars. It's like the cars you'd see kids like soup up, but those are the ones that are most likely or that get pulled over the most using like looking at the last 10 years of data. It's actually white, have 19% of the citations. However, it's the most common because it's also 25% of the cars on the road. So 1 in 4 cars are white. Second is red at 16%. And so they're because of it, red is overrepresented based on the amount of cars on the road, leading life to the myth. So they're saying it's a myth, but they're also saying over the last 10 years, data does support it. Proportion to the number of cars on the roads, reds actually do get the most citations.
And I'll throw like one piece of data, and then we'll get into some of the stuff, because I actually want to talk a little VFriends this morning, because I think VFriends and DeGods is actually a good juxtaposition to talk about, because I did some VFriends stuff this weekend with the fam, and they've been out there on card shows and whatnot.
Frosty giving me those Coda vibes this morning. If he keeps tipping me 690 Pingo, Frosty may fund my next Coda, Steve.
I know. I've been thinking about that. I'm like, man, if Frosty keeps coming with the heavy bags, maybe I'll be.
I mean, 690 Pingo. That's like what, like $107 now.
it's not nothing. No, I was gonna say the other thing I'll throw in as a wrench to the perspective here would be the following. Like you just mentioned, cars that kids drive. Cars that kids drive are like, you need to think of it as like
toy racer cars, as Mesh called them.
Well, no, the thing about it is like, and yes, maybe again, who knows? I'm just kind of like throwing out a couple like theories here. Kids are way higher from an insurance standpoint for a reason. They get in more accidents. They're not as safe drivers. So when you add a kid to your car insurance, price tends to go up. That's one of the reasons that
confirm.
Well, it's one of the reasons State Farm actually crushes is State Farm is willing to eat that if they feel like they can keep you for life as a customer. So if you have a kid and they want to keep you as a customer, it won't affect your insurance rates nearly as much. It was one of their tactics. And so when you talk about the cars, you're like, oh, Camry, this type of car, like older, like Surprise, like they get more speeding tickets. It may be because there's more people between the ages of 16 and like 24 driving those, where you're going to see a disproportionate raise in risk forward driving. So just throwing out all the nerd stuff where it's like, a lot of times it's sort of like the concept of like,
I didn't know this about State Farm. I actually kid you not, I'm going to get a State Farm quote today because my car insurance is just absolutely absurd. I'm not even going to quote it because half the people won't believe it's true. I didn't realize that. And so like I grew up with State Farm. My parents had State Farm as a kid. And then it was like, I got far cheaper insurance with Progressive and Root and these other like modern insurance companies. But I haven't even checked. I think that's maybe the one brand I haven't checked in Florida because I just thought they were like the old boomers insurance. But yeah, if they don't penalize you for having 2 kids under the age of 25, that's probably my.
It's better. It's better. You should definitely do it, especially if you have other things you insure, like a house and other things outside of it, multiple vehicles. They're looking for, so at the Progressive, we talked about it publicly in our meeting, so I don't mind saying this. Progressive, when I was there, we had these 4 categories: the Sams, the Dianes, the Wrights, and the Robinsons. Sams would be like your kids who are like 18 to 24 who just need insurance. Diane's, maybe they had renter's insurance. Wrights might be married, but they only have like a product or 2. And then Robinsons, you're talking about people who have like home insurance. You can bundle them. You can keep them through. State Farm does disproportionately well with the Robinsons, and the sort of Sams and Dianes, like Progressive is incredibly great at pricing accurately, but that also means a lot of times they'll lose them or won't get them because of that State Farm sort of factor there. State Farm on the flip side is fighting exactly that. It's my parents' car insurance. It's boomer stuff. I don't need that. So I will be quoting State Farm in the next, year and a half or so when my daughter starts getting her temp.
We are breaking news again. Just as we started the show, it was announced Strategy bought another 13,390 Bitcoin for $1.34 billion. There was also another Strategy clone that just got spun up. I'm drawing a blank on the name. I'll go grab the tweet here in a second. I shared it actually in my friend group. I'm like, listen, like, this isn't, in what world do we see less institutional buyers? I attempt not to speak in absolutes, but I can't fathom a world where we see less institutional buyers, not more. Kindly is the new one. Kindly, David Bailey's new BTC acquisition company called Nakamito just announced they will raise $700 million to buy Bitcoin and merge with Kindly MD. Kindly stock up 450% pre-market. So not only are these, like, again, I think without the stock market responding, we would see more and more of this. But the fact that the market loves these moves by these companies, like, how like, so check me. Like, is this not, or this not, I'm not gonna say it's gonna be every Fortune 500. I'm not gonna say it's every state in the country, but it's certainly going to be more a year from now than it is today, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a definite, look, again, we always
stage 2, because that'll be good for the next conversation.
We always say not financial advice for a reason. And yeah, like especially with Jack, probably good to go into the next conversation.
I wonder if Jack can. He probably missed the opening. I mentioned if you're not on video, you're going to want to see the video feed today for an antique. It's been like, you might have caught it if you've been paying attention, looking closely. But I'm wondering if Jack can figure out what I'm referencing in terms of Web3 merch here this morning.
Oh, I mean, I knew immediately when you came up. Before I even saw it. When I came on the screen, I knew exactly what you were wearing. It's a great hat. But I think it's institutional, just for people, like, let's hit the macro, because we may spend a lot of time on this comparative thing, because I have a lot of thoughts. I've had this comparative thought on DeGods versus VFriends, and it's not to say DeGods are bad or say like VFriends should feel this way, but this juxtaposition that struck me this weekend. For people who aren't, like, we're talking a little macro. Yes, I do think institutional buying is coming through harder and harder. I think people are looking at opportunity to add things to their balance sheets, risk assets in a light way. This is what happens with the risk assets. It's happened with the early tech division. It's going to happen with cryptocurrency, in my opinion. We also had a trade deal or a trade agreement, I should say, with U.S. and China, where they both feel like they won. So if you missed it, it was announced this morning. They discussed it yesterday. They're reducing, they're basically easing the trade war for a 90-day period. So we got another sort of kick the can down the road. So reduction. Go ahead.
Sorry, let's finish your thought.
No, I was going to give you like the details on it real quick. U.S. lower tariffs on its Chinese goods from 145% to 30%, while China reduces U.S. goods from 125% to 10%. These reductions are set for a 90-day period in which both nations aim to engage in further negotiations on the underlying assets. There are remaining tariffs, including 20% on China's alleged role in the fentanyl crisis. They're going to maintain that. China's agreed to suspend all non-tariff measures, such as export controls to the U.S. and goods. So really powerful next 90 days to potentially ease things off while they talk about it. I think this actually is a situation where one of two ways this could have gone. On one hand, it could have gone to the Chinese are stubborn. They've been around. They're prideful nationally. Trump is stubborn. He's prideful about his ego. Like, they could have gotten in that debate. On the other hand, they could come out of this in a way, if they do it well, where they basically wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We do this, it seems like you won. We do this, it makes it seems like I won. We both claim victory. We both go talk a bunch of shit publicly about each other, like we won the deal. but all that matters is that the market knows that we've eased things here and things move forward. So a little bit of a pullback to move forward. So
I'm
really
glad I didn't
positive.
spend the last 5 or 6 weeks just being, not even able to function because I was worried about tariffs. Glad I didn't melt down over that Liberation Day like 5 weeks ago. But here, in all seriousness, it is, to your point, it's a pause for 90 days. Like, it's not a done deal yet. This is an extremely volatile administration. And while it feels like we're approaching a euphoric state in the market, this could come unraveled just as fast as it came together. So just like, still reminder, don't get ahead of your skis. Don't put any money in you can't afford to lose. And while it seems like we're entering up only mode, like if things don't get finalized, it could be as bad as quick as it got good again.
Yeah, for sure. So just be careful out there. And like, maybe we'll talk a little more macro if we have time towards the end as well, just because it is interesting. I think we are moving in a positive direction. Obviously, if you're looking at the charts, we see this thing called, there's this shit coin called Ethereum, which has been absolutely sending. So it's up a bunch. So that's good to see. Movement on. We see it up 41% in the past 7 days to 2,500, just when everybody was talking trash about it. Solana back up to 174. Bitcoin at 103,000 now, but kissed 105 recently. So it actually feels normal being over 100, which is a pretty good feeling as well. So a lot of good things sending. But Cap, one of the stories of the day I think worth covering. So I'm gonna kind of tee this up a little bit longer, and then I'll give it for takes. So DeGods, and again, hold on. Let me why don't you talk about the Frank DeGods thing? Because I realized there's a guest I was trying to organize today. I didn't hear back about them. If we okay, never mind. The guest is not coming on today. So there was a guest I was trying to lock in, and I had given him a time last Thursday, and then it kind of went silent until this morning, and I just got an email. I was like, oh shit, are we supposed to have them on at night? We need to move quicker then. But nope, guest is not coming on, so we're gonna find a time next week. So anyway, scratch that. But moving forward, a guest who had a really big announcement last week. But moving forward, the DeGods. So Frank announced he is stepping down as CEO of DeGods. He sort of stepped down as CEO of DeGods in spirit seemingly a while ago. He basically
quiet quit.
No, he loudly quit. He was like, I'm not doing anything for this anymore. He said on the timeline, I'm not doing shit for this anymore. Like, I don't care. Like, you guys are just, I'm never going to do anything to make people happy. Remember that whole thing? Mm-hmm. I wanted to juxtapose it, and it's not meant to be a shot at DeGods while building this other brand up. This weekend, my kids and I ripped some VFriends packs from that booster pack. People were like, rip them on stream, do the content. I'm like, honestly, like, my kids wanted to rip them. My moral compass tells me to rip them with my kids. My son learned what VFriends were. I talked to him. He really liked the Wise Wasp and a couple other characters. He put them in his little he has a little display where he has Pokemon and all these other things. And I got him this mini Eiffel Tower. I got him from France. Remember when we were chasing down that Uber? When I gave it to him, he placed it in his display. He loves it. It's his second favorite item up there, he said, actually. But he I'm ripping packs of VFriends, and I think to myself, I was explaining to my son, and I was like, yeah, man, think about those traits. Everybody in the family collectively pick traits they aspire to be or traits that they think represent them. I have 9 cards on my desk that I use to address and keep in top of mind. And my son was like, wait, is that what VFriends is? I was like, yeah. He's like, I thought they were just an NFT project because he doesn't care about the things I do. I'm like, yeah, no, man, it's comics. He's like, I didn't know that they were inspirational and a higher purpose. And my son's like, I really like that. He loves that concept of the Wise Wasp or the confident Cobra he took because he's trying to be more things like that. And my son really clicked with him. And I thought to myself, and I explained to him, yeah, there's comics and there's a cartoon series and they do this card game. They just built a brand. They didn't trend chase. They didn't just drop a token. They didn't chain jump. They didn't get in the day-to-day. They just built a brand, and they kept people coming along the way, and you can kind of see what that is. And then I thought about DeGods when I saw the Frank thing this morning and thought about how I didn't get a Sabbath DFriends cards, Diablito, but I did pull one of the Damon John, rare, out of 95 or whatever. But I get myself thinking, I don't know, man, DeGods just is this, they wanted to build a community, and they just chased every single trend. And like, I'm not trying to like nail them or make it a bad thing. It's like a lot of NFT. I think they're representatives of what a lot of these NFT brands, we talk about 95% going to zero, and the juxtaposition between ripping packs of this established, like building out IP in a real meaningful long-term way versus, I mean, I have a Squishmallow in my back. Squishmallows are super popular, like the partnerships. And then I have DeGods that I was like, it was a different demographic, but man, it was like every trend they chased. And it was just like, it felt like they were chasing the dragon over and over again. And it just never landed. And it led to upset holders. It led to disappointments. It led to a ton of hype. Frank would always be like, this is going to be the biggest announcement ever. Just wait until the next season. New art. I don't know, man. Like, it was a striking juxtaposition for me to do what I did this weekend with my kids and be friends, and then think about the move that DeGods have made. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I'm like, and I'm looking forward to hearing everyone's opinion on this. I'm looking forward to hearing Jack's opinion, who I pinned up a good post this morning that he shared his feelings, was deep in that ecosystem, not just as a holder, but as an ambassador, a brand ambassador. And I don't want to make it a personal attack on Frank. The reality is he's a kid. Like, he may have made millions of dollars. He may have dumped on his followers. He's still a kid. He's a very young adult. And this space is hard. I mean, it'll eat people up.
Real quick on that, just to like people always get like, they're like, he's not a kid. He's look, like the reference in which Cap is saying it is not meant to be condescending or patting him on the head, or like, it's meant to be like, we're in our 40s. We know where we were at mentally when we were 24, 25.
It's
and
very
what
different.
We were doing.
It's very, very different. Yes. I know someone that's 20 doesn't understand this, and you won't until you're our age. Like, you can't like push a button and fast forward 20 years of life experience. You just can't do it. And you know what? My biggest life lessons have come during periods, not exactly, but similar to what Frank's probably going through right now, and having to like you take an L, but I'm grateful for those because they've been my biggest life lessons, they've been biggest learnings, and they've made me who I am today. But I'm not here if not going through some of those trials and tribulations along the way. And I would not have been prepared to go through what I went through in my mid 30s, in my early 20s. I wouldn't. Like, I honestly, like, I get chills. I probably would be dead. Like, I probably would be dead, Steve. I just would be. Like, I work hard, I play hard, and had I went through some of the stuff I went through in my 30s, I probably would have drank myself to death. Like, it was just, I realized now I don't drink anymore because it's not a good stress reliever. But yeah, I went through some really stressful moments, and I'm grateful that I had a few more extra years of life. So yeah, I just feel free to share any of your opinions on DeGods, the space at large. I just don't want it to be a personal, let's drag Frank through the mud. Because the reality is there's a lot of people that came in 2021 in this space, and they didn't do a fraction of what Frank did. While it's sad, it's not the outcome that he and those holders, Jack and others, probably would have liked to see. There was people that made a killing in that ecosystem. There was people that did very, very, very well in DeGods. And it was hard. Like, most people didn't last nearly as long as Frank. You look at people like Kevin Rose. He did a worse job than Frank in this space, in my opinion. It spit him up and chewed him out well before it did Frank. So again, I'm not trying to be an apologist for Frank. I'm not like, do I agree with everything he did or how he did it? Absolutely not. I also just want us to be aware of life experiences and keep that in perspective. When we're talking about, juxtaposition, someone like K-Ro, who's our age, compared to someone like Frank, K-Ro should be better. He's had some of those experiences before. This is probably, for all intents and purposes, at least to this extreme, Frank's first journey at this. And, I just, when we're in a space where it seems like someone is offing themselves once a week, it's like, let's just not attack individuals unless they're really doing things maliciously and like directly, intentionally stealing and being a bad actor, nefarious actor. I do believe Frank had good intentions. He just, he captured attention, and then he also wanted to chase it. And it was the, what's hot today. And while I understand why that could be attractive for a builder in this space, it's just you have to have a plan and stick to your plan. You can't just chase the hot thing of the day. And it's just tough, man. Like, I have 2 exits, and I would not want to build a PFP collection in this space. I don't like. It would probably have someone have to cut me an 8-figure check to want to do that and take that responsibility on for 3 to 5 years. It's not worth it. It's very difficult. You're never going to make everyone happy. And if you care about people, being an NFT founder is probably one of the most challenging jobs in the world.
Yeah, I'll give this. And like,
Yeah, an NFT founder that captures significant attention, and if you run up, then like after you've quote unquote made it in this space, it becomes extremely challenging. I feel.
right. And like, this isn't to exonerate Frank of
No,
responsibility. Like, he took the
not at all.
job.
Yeah.
He, you know what I mean? And it's like, again, like it's I think it's just a matter of like perspective, in that when you look back at the era of that, it was a wild era. He was a cult figure leading a organization that he created a community. And that's what he wanted to create. And then I think part of it was that, like, one of the reasons I understand, it's a good example of why a lot of these NFT communities, nobody wins. Because you create a community, you sell some things, which, by the way, like, DeGods was not an expensive mint. It was light on Solana when Solana wasn't much at the time. And he created this sort of movement, this sort of like digital frat that he put together. They were unapologetic about how they approached DeGod mode and how they were. They were just like, it's one of the reasons why DeGod parties weren't necessarily my jam, right? Like, we went to a barbecue during the day.
But if it was your jam, like if we were of that demographic, if that was our jam, I mean, name 5 other brands that have pulled together better events than that.
Right. And I think for me,
which is where this came from, by the way.
Yeah, it for me,
it's a quality hat. It's not a good hat. It fits really weird on my head. I'm gonna have to pull it off. I feel like I'm wearing one of those big hats.
Yeah, yeah, it's a hat that I'm not good at wearing. It's kind of a hat like Bunch can probably wear.
Bunch would pull it off. Bunch Chamber could really pull. This is like built for Chamber set, I feel.
Yeah, they can wear all sorts of hats too.
I've never felt this before. I actually have some complex right now. I'm feeling like, is my head small? Do I have a small head?
No.
I've never thought this in my life before. Now I'm feeling really self-conscious about the size of my head.
So Dawn wears that hat when we travel sometimes, but it like literally covers her ears. Like, it's down so far, but no, it's
ridiculous on camera.
Yeah, it's a crazy hat. It's a crazy hat. It's it's a big hat. But that's the style for a lot of these kids, you know? Like, I could pull that thing down deep over my ears and make it work. No, I think like one of the things with DeGods is I think they got caught up in the never-ending. There you go. Now it really looks like one of the big hats because it's so wide. The ones that Gilly created and wears. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
I part of me wants to show up to an X Web3 event just wearing this thing just for the lulz.
You know what though? I do that hat backwards, and it like big hats. My hack is turn it backwards. Because when you turn it back, I mean, now you actually need it to be like properly.
Makes you look like that. What's the who's the guy from White Lotus with the giant?
Oh, see, I was gonna say, like, with the beard and like the backwards hat and like the way you got your hair pulled back, you got the Joey Swole look. You know Joey Swole, who in the camera, like, someone would be filming and be like, and Joey Swole's like, "Stop it. You're the problem with the gym today." And like, he's right, actually, in every single one. I actually love that. He's like, why are people watching this disgusting content?
Find me a better, nicer, more friendly, juiced up meathead than Joey Swoles.
And he's just like, he always says, he's like, be better. And I like feel like I'm like, I need to be better. Joey Swoles got me convinced here. Like, he's like, I like Joey Swole. I always watch his videos when they come through because he's always right. He's always right. Cap is ditching the hat for a normal dad hat because he's a dad. So dad hat switching for the dad hat. But no, I don't know. Like, I'll just put the train back on the tracks. Here's the thing with DeGods. I think DeGods chased a lot of trends. I see the frustration. It's a good example of why being in an NFT community is tough, right? You as a leader need to decide on your direction. And again, using the VFreds example, they had a clear direction they were going with this IP and with this like thing the whole time. And I don't think everybody has that. And then you're doing exactly what your holders ask you to do. Holders wanted a token, they got a token. Holders wanted them to do stuff, they're doing stuff. Holders wanted parties, they threw parties. And then the holders are like, why isn't the price going up? You're failing us as a leader. So Frank's tweet when he was like, there's nothing I can do and blah, 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 blah. It's tough, but it's also tough when it's like, you put yourself in this position. And it's like, you have to decide like what that looks like. So I think like DeGods are a classic, I think cautionary tale. And obviously they're not over, but like they're chasing trends. They just wanted to be a community. At one point he said, we're just going to be a community. And he chased trends and nobody won, right? I mean, the people who sold at the top won, obviously, but like, you know, It's like, and then Frank went to the meme coin things. And I think people want to talk about that. That's a different era of his life and his career. And if you want to talk about him getting distracted as CEO of DeGods, I think that is a fair critique. He took on a whole new career, which, he was he was an entertaining streamer. He was, he said some wacky shit that was not great at times, but at times he had some really insightful things. That's a fine critique to me. And I understand why the DeGods community was frustrated with that. But to me, it's like it was trend chasing. It was chain hopping. It was this token. It was that thing. And it was like, they were like, and they would always be like, we're experimenting, we're trying. But it didn't feel like, it's one thing if you experiment and you try and you fail with like a really good plan and a really good strategy. It felt like they were just trying things for the sake of trying things, and it didn't always work. The crazy part about DeGods, and then I want to get Jack in here for his opinions on it. DeGods. There was a time in Art Basel like 2022 when we thought that Moonbirds might buy DeGods, when like Frank was showing up to all that stuff. Then in Art Basel 2023, when Moonbirds were for sale, we had a conversation that they tried to sell Moonbirds and Proof to DeGods, actually. Like, I think we're a couple years out now. We can probably say that. It's like they were trying to pitch it. Yuga ultimately ended up being the buyer of Proof for the Treasury, but they were trying to pitch it to DeGods.
This is a true story.
Yeah. Like, we went from...
There's an alter timeline somewhere where that actually happened, probably.
Oh, it's crazy to think about that we went in, and a lot of people know, but we literally, like, when people were like,
it was the hat party, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the hat party. It was the hat party. And people were rumoring that, like, it
wasn't just people though. I think it was substantiated rumors at the time.
But everybody was like saying like, what are these rumors? And I think Kevin Rose maybe even denied them at the time. Meanwhile, we're at Art Basel talking to, I think Luca outed it publicly. I think he was the first one to be like, yeah, they approached me about buying Proof, but I'm not interested. And then we had conversations with people where DeGods was actually in conversations to potentially buy Proof and didn't want to do it. It's like these conversations happened behind closed doors 2 years ago. But it's a crazy thing to think that I guess my point is DeGods were so big even 2 years ago. You forget that it was a real conversation. They were going to buy Moonbird. I don't know what Moonbird's floor price was at that point. They were probably like 5, 6, 7 ETH at least, right? I don't remember what they were at the time when Yuga bought them. What were Moonbirds when Yuga bought them? At least an ETH. Like, they were decently priced. Like, so DeGods were big enough to be in the conversation to buy one of the other major NFT projects. So to see where they've come now.
The year before that hat party in New York at NFT NYC, I'm pretty sure they got upwards of $500,000 in sponsorship money to throw a party.
Yeah. Like, they were getting their business model where like sponsors were paying to have access to their community, and they were making money throwing events. So they had a good thing going. And then to see where they ended up now is like, again, Frank won in his LA Vape Cabal arc. Obviously things went sideways there. Everybody has their own variation of thoughts and stories of how that went down. And now he's kind of giving it away. But Jack, you were the one. Okay.
I want to get to Jack here. I want to get Jack's point. There are some comments in the chat. We will get to these as well, because I do think, and maybe not, maybe it's all one and the same. From my perspective, I'm viewing there's like two chapters here. There's Frank and what he did as the CEO of DeGods. And then because I see a lot of people like, oh, well, he made millions dumping on his followers over the past year, trading in the trenches. Personally, I bifurcate the two. Like, him as a trader, it was not him. Like, I don't know how I feel about it, but
I think the critique there is the nuance of like, if you're still CEO, you're doing this very public other thing where it's like,
probably should have stepped down a year ago before he started trenching that hard.
Right. Like if the CEO of, if we saw, Jack from Magic,
because there was people like Jack who held on, right? And in the reality is he probably knew a year ago that he was done, right? Like
it would be weird if Gargo was going on streams talking about trading shit coins and interviewing founders and things. So like, I think that is a fair critique. The dump on the followers thing is a question. Like I like to see like wallet proof of dumping on followers, because I think Frank had a self-fulfilling prophecy of people tracked his wallets. They found his wallets no matter how private you were. He buys something, people look for it, he sells it. He talks about this great trade he made, but in reality, people were just copy trading him. But it's a weird self-fulfilling prophecy. And that's not an excuse. I didn't like the LA Vape Cabal stuff very much. Like, I respected their hustle. I respected what they were doing. It wasn't my jam. It wasn't my game. I didn't like a lot of the things associated with it or some of the ways they went about things. But it was a hustle. It was the thing they did. But yeah, like if we need to like talk about there's kind of two conversations here. There's the Frank specific conversation, which is the, hey, should he have been doing that? I get that point. People are saying there's the DeGods conversation about like what they did and kind of the chasing of the trends. So I think there's a lot of things here. But Jack, you were somebody who was deep in the ecosystem. You had a Bitcoin DeGod. You were deep in the DeGods ecosystem in general. What were your feelings on everything DeGods and kind of how it's gone down and how things have gone? Like, where's your head at now?
Honestly, guys, it's kind of wild to see. I think, look, predominantly my main thought is that I am concerned with the reaction of him stepping down and the amount of glazing and protection that he is receiving for the space overall. And I think for me, what it really, really falls down to is, regardless of how old Frank is, which, yeah, look, I'm not here to personally attack the guy, but there were a ton of promises that were made that, you know, essentially just became extraction events. Like, now in hindsight, after him stepping down, regardless of what his thoughts or processes, or whether he genuinely believed he was going to obtain these goals that he set, he didn't do any of that. And you guys are completely right. Like, he stepped down a year ago, and just let that collection and his holders bleed for a year whilst trading meme coins and making millions of dollars for himself. This sort of stuff can't be forgiven. In my opinion, for the space to move forward in the right vein now, this sort of stuff cannot be forgiven in terms of actions taken and then the response that comes after it. And like, specifically, I just want to give some context here. As a holder, and as a very specific timeline of events that will give you guys a little bit more context of what I'm talking about right now. We're talking about how much these guys raised. They raised over $20 million in total, between royalties, between collections, between merch sales, between profits, and between the BTC DeGods collection. This is not small change, and this, regardless of how mismanaged those funds were, a $20 million collection or $20 million in sales, in almost pure profit, when you talk about the digital element of like creating this sort of stuff. Absolutely wild to compare these two things, that amount of money that has been made, and then the lack of responsibility that person now has and how well they did for the space.
Yeah, I don't, just because I'm not saying he did well for the space, and I agree with you. Like, I think people should and could be forgiven.
Yes,
but
like, look at Zagabond, look at, you know, look at like the trajectory he has went on. My big thing on this, Cap, is like, you got to still be here to be forgiven.
We shouldn't forget, especially those people who are still here. We should not forget this. And you said it in your post this morning. I think this is where he screwed up, Jack. We collectively, this space at large, we chose to platform maybe not the best people in 2021. We chased attention, and like, think about it in hindsight, like, what had Frank done at that point to garner as much attention and these $20 million? And it was like, so we got caught up in that pandemonium. But I think it is important. Like, who are you platforming here? Do they deserve this platform? And I'm not saying like, hey, maybe it's some breakout star, but I think a lot of us got caught up in the mania and the pandemonium, and a lot of people got platformed, huge platforms, to your point, tens of millions of dollars. Why? In what other world would they have been secured that funding or had such a platform? So I think, like, to your point, you can, and everyone can do your own. If you don't want to forgive someone, don't forgive someone. It's a personal decision, but we should not forget. And if Frank comes out in 6 months and wants to do a one Bitcoin mint, don't mint the thing. Like, he's not earned that. It's not a shot at Frank. He's not earned it yet. He showed that, hey, this wasn't his path. So if he comes back in a few months trying to do it again, don't forget what happened last time. Sorry, Jack. Go ahead.
My bigger concern is actually what this means for other founders and other people, and also in terms of people who genuinely believe the space is coming back or never left. Like, this is my biggest concern about Frank and his behavior. And yes, look, there's the meta chasing and there's all that context. There's him going to meme coins and there's all that context. But also there was just some really core, really questionable actions that this guy took, in my opinion, that goes beyond like the moral compass of just not being able to change, like, achieve a thing. So just deciding to quit on it. And like the context I'll give is BTC DeGods. So BTC DeGods was probably one of the most successful events in DeGods history. They made like 4 or 5 million on the mint in terms of the BTC value as of that time. And one thing that Frank sold the holders, and you can imagine who's buying these things, right? Like, because this was like a $25,000 collection at BTC's price at the time. You can imagine who is buying these things. It's going to be the most like supportive people, the people who have the most faith in this guy, in the team's ability to achieve this. And they sold a really specific product, in my opinion. Like, this isn't like the rest of it where it's metas. And the specific product was the most premium thing, the most premium collectible, and the tier of that collectible as possible. And then the actual aftermath of that was these guys not including BTC DeGods in any of the core utility that DeGods then received. They were removed from a group Discord. So they were just basically siloed off into their own singular Discord where they couldn't even communicate with the rest of the communities. I don't know what that was about. I don't know if it was concerns or FUD or whatever, but that then happened. Then they actually had like some products they launched. Like, I'm forgetting the name of the thing, but you know, the sort of roulette, like the pack ripping thing that you could get. I forget the specific product, but it was the product that they launched. And you could win a Tesla with it, and you could win. BTC DeGods were removed from that. They didn't get access. Points parlor. So thanks, Joey. Like, so this is the thing for me. Like, there is one thing to say this guy was chasing metas. There's another thing to say he got distracted by meme coins and, you know, how nefarious and how bad that was. But even on the core promise that he made to his most valued people, like the people who valued him the most within the space, he also did them so dramatically dirty. In a respect of where, like, the other excuses that we're making for this guy, like, this is the core pillar for me where, like, actually, no, like, none of that makes any sense. There was no issue or no tangible reason to raise $5 million from your chorus of believers in a collection and then completely ignore them from inception. And there was nothing done through the whole time span until today for BTC DeGods. There was no event thrown. There was no value provided. Basically, they had like a ragtag group of BTC DeGod holders who started trying to get whitelist and allow list for collections, but this wasn't the team. The team had no input in the biggest race. So this is, I think, fundamentally, when I think of all of these things, and there is a lot of gray area, and there is a lot of this guy is young, this guy could have made different moves. This guy just didn't get the product right. But this is the thing for me, where it's just like, if he was to do that, at this point, the rest of the excuses to me get looked at in a very different light from how this kid behaved. And now seeing the timeline try and protect the exit of this person concerns me, because people who know this history and lore, and I am wrapping up now, the people who know this history and lore are basically going to be looking at other people coming to Frank's defense and being like, oh, well, maybe this just isn't the space for me. Because if that's acceptable and people are defending that behavior and saying this guy was a net positive for the space, why the fuck would I want to be in that space? Because that is a terrifying thing to see. And that's why I think we need to be very, very careful when we do in any way try and protect this figure for what basically is one of the biggest extractors that we've seen in the space, whether it was because they wanted to or whether they didn't. And that's just my personal take on this.
So I want to give a couple of like contextual things to this, because one, I just want to be clear. I'm not trying to protect or defend or anything like that. I'm just kind of giving the perspective.
I'm not speaking about you guys, by the way.
No. I didn't take that.
On the fence job of this. I'm talking about the comments to his, like, basically his announcement of stepping down. If you go through those comments, it's concerning.
I think, you're fair in critiquing Steve and I as well, because, Rain says it in the chat, says, he appreciates you being a voice of honesty, says myself and Steve had ignored some of these things in the past. We miss Frank onboarding people with lies of him doing things with Dust, helping artists, female DeGods, BTC gods, which he kept, which were meant to be raffled. I responded, I'm not sure we really ignored. We just didn't give air cover to much of it. We were in the beginning, and then we just stopped talking about Frank on here. To Rain's point, though, and he's probably right. Like, the issue is we weren't neutral. We pushed the positive, but we didn't hold him accountable for the negative. He says he's an ex-holder who experienced it. And yeah, I mean, that's probably fair critique of us, is we didn't talk about a lot of the negative stuff that was happening and as the unraveling that community. We just moved on and stopped talking about it.
We did a little bit though. I think we talked about like the, him kind of abandoning it. We did talk about it at the time because I totally forgot. Rain had a good point where he says
we weren't deep in the community. Like we both had Utes at one point, but we were never in the Discord. We didn't know a lot of this stuff. And yeah, he did a good job at attention marketing. The rest stuff fell flat. And there's things that we probably could have been more critical on. I don't disagree. It's just I'll speak for myself. I prefer to highlight what's going good in the space as opposed to being like a Debbie Downer every day. And it seems like for the last couple of years, there's not been much good to talk about with DeGods and Frank in general.
Yeah, we definitely, as it became less relevant, we didn't talk about it because there wasn't relevant things to talk about. And like, even when they would do things, it'd be like, okay, it's another art reveal. Okay, cool, move on. Like we didn't have a lot of conversations there. I think Rain's point though, where he says like, if you're not an insider after a few years, it's a skill issue. We did talk about that at the time, and I did forget about that. So great point by Rain. And again, I know you're not necessarily saying specific about us, Jack, but like, my perspective, I didn't see him getting glazed. I actually assumed he was just getting ripped on the timeline because that's kind of what happens. And I would say a couple things. And this is where like each part of the story that you participate in matters, because I owned a Ute. I never owned a DeGod. I wasn't that deep in the community. I went to a few DeGods events, and that was about the extent of it. And I was like understanding of the stuff they were doing. We had them on the show a couple times. Here's what I would say about it. I think the perspective I provide is from somebody who didn't have a Bitcoin DeGod, who didn't have a DeGod. So like anybody who was financially hurt by their lack of execution has the absolute right to do it. My inclination, and I could be wrong, is that to your point where you ended it, I thought very eloquently, where you said whether they intended to or not, they extracted a bunch of money and they didn't do anything. My inclination is that it wasn't a deliberate extraction. It was just they were not good at running a business. And this became clear at some point when they kept moving around and pivoting. And I think that part of it is what we run. Like they wanted to do the female thing. They didn't land the plan on her to get them distributed. They wanted to do points parlor. They probably didn't have a good strategic plan for it. They wanted to do a fungible token. They didn't think it through.
There's also, I'll defer to you if you want to share this or not now. I think we're far enough out. We probably can.
I won't, but you can.
Okay, now we're all hooked.
Well, first of all, whoever said in the chat, I may do another, I may not only create, I may actually launch a Boop token today, Steve. Someone said we need cap with cap. I think I may launch my first meme coin today.
Go be
if I don't get insider of this after spending like over a year on shows with you guys, then I'm going to be pissed.
It's a skill issue, Jack. It's a skill issue then. But no, as Frank said to us, as the wise Frank once said. But no, I guess my point is like, I don't like what. Let's be clear. Like, go ahead.
I want to go back. I'm just going to share. I don't care. I didn't sign an NDA. So if someone wants to come after me, let's have a conversation. If I'm sharing something that you don't want shared, I apologize, but I think it's relevant. It's a relevant data point. I'll be somewhat vague, but if you have any intelligence and you shop online everywhere, you'll figure this out really quickly. There's a very large brand, one of the largest brands in the world. They smile a lot, and if you probably have a package delivered at your house a couple times a week, if not more. They were planning a big push in the space. My understanding is DeGods and Utes and that ecosystem was a major launch partner, and accomplished something that many people in this space, a partnership that many would have loved to have. And yeah, we shared it before. So it's Amazon. Yeah. Like they had a deal with Amazon, and Amazon, not because of DeGods, but they just decided not to go forward with the plan. And so there was a forced pivot in there that no one ever talks about in the space. And again, I'm not trying to glaze him. I agree. We should be critiquing this. This is not good for the space when this kind of stuff happens. I agree with you. I don't necessarily think a lot of it was intentful. I just don't think they ran a good business, and they kept pivoting. And one of the biggest pivot that wasn't their fault, I don't believe, no one ever talks about, and most people aren't even aware of. It was a pretty big deal in terms of their trajectory. You think about all the time, resources, and energy you have to put in a deal like that, and then it just doesn't come to be. And it's like, oh shit, now what do we do?
Well, and here's the thing. Like, I agree with that. And the other part I'll say about it is, I think multiple things. I think like like on the flip side, like one of the things we're saying is like, look, he didn't run over a good business. It didn't go well. They chased the trends. It didn't work. And someone like Jack has every right to be really pissed off about that, especially if you spent money in the ecosystem. So I'm not denying that. I don't think they executed well on things. I think, like, again, they gave up on points parlor. Like, hey, we tried some shit. And that was all the easy excuse. Hey, we're testing, we're learning, we're experimenting. And I didn't love that. I think the other part where I will be critical is I think Frank was great at attention marketing and they loved it when it worked for them. And then when it went the other way, they're like, why are you guys expecting so much and not giving us any love here? And it's like, well, you can't have it both ways. If you're going to play on hype and attention marketing, at some point, it's like at some point, and I'm not saying that DeGods is a Ponzi scheme. It's an analogy. But when you know, if you ever see a documentary on a Ponzi scheme, go watch the one on Lou Pearlman. At some point, eventually it catches up with you. It catches up with Bernie Madoff. It catches up with these people. I'm not making a comparison that this is them, but from a hype perspective, I would say, at some point it catches up with you. If you constantly are saying this next thing is going to be the biggest thing, you just wait. There's an old, and it ends differently. There's an old Broadway show called Music Man, where this guy basically goes town to town and kind of like rips the people off and leaves and whatever. And one of the things he's selling is band equipment. And he's like basically gets them all set up with the band equipment, collects their money, says he's going to teach them how to be awesome, and then he leaves the town each time before they get in there. But at some point, it catches up with you when people find you. And again, I'm not saying that they're grifters or scammers or anything like that. It's more the hype part of it, to make an analogy with the hype, where it's like they were well-intended, but it's like, this is going to be awesome. This is going to be awesome. This is going to be awesome. And then when it caught up and it wasn't awesome, and they're like, oh, you guys don't understand. We didn't promise anything. It's like, you hype marketed and you said it was going to be huge and then you delayed it. And so I think that those consequences do matter. And like to Jack's point, like saying something is going, like I talk about the execution. If you say BTC DeGods are the highest level of membership and you're doing that to make money because you didn't manage your treasury well, which is what I've been told, right? Like people have talked about it on this stage. If they were saying BTC DeGods were going to be the highest level of membership because they needed to sell some stuff, because they need to make some money back, because they didn't manage the treasury well, okay, that's fine. But then you need to deliver on that. Like when you make a promise, you need to deliver on it. And so I think, that's fair. I think the area where we're having a little bit of grace is like, not saying we're forgiving or glazing or anything like that, but they made an attempt. They said what they said. He's leaving the space. Like, I think that is a cautionary tale as much as anything. I think for anybody who got caught up and feels some type of way about like Frank or the community, I get that. I think of it as a cautionary tale of how a lot of these things were run, and they're not the only ones. We talk about Gutter Cat Gang and certain other ones where we've seen some issues that still to this day, Gutter Cat Gang dropped a gang token recently that they sort of, fumbled a little bit.
I know there's a lot of talk of DeGods. I actually think the worst fumble was Utes. Greggy says in the chat, totally agrees with Jack. He similarly treated Utes holders badly, especially Utes builders. I agree. Like, I think they could have done something really special with creators in the Utes ecosystem. I think of Jack. I think of Loop. I think of these are individuals who have went on to create careers as content creators or founders in Web3s, and they rocked those Utes for a long time. And like, did they literally do nothing with Utes other than bridging? Like, were Utes ever even part of the points parlor or no?
No.
Like,
no, they didn't get points parlor, I don't think.
Had a community that many in this space would kill for, not kill, but would love to have. And just that was, I think, the worst fumble, because it really did, like the youth scholarship, I know maybe might have been a joke, but at the time that was novel. It was interesting. Like it's like, had they just focused on that and executed one thing there, like it's
well,
like,
this is the poor execution conversation where it's like Utes, even when he would talk about DeGods, he'd be like, Utes are next. Like, you just wait. We're planning around you, and it's going to be content creator and this, that, and the other.
That's when they did that scholarship application, I know they started to make it a software thing. It landed flat, but instead of trying to become a B2B SaaS company, he should just started an agency.
See, I don't know. I think that I wouldn't want his type of marketing for my brand based on the fact that it just ends up with the. But look, let's do this, because I know we have some hands. I know we're going to get some aggressive stuff from Joey. I know that Jack wants to get back in here. Again, like last slide I'll have on it is like, I agree on the youth part. I think that part of it is incredibly noteworthy, because it's like, but this goes back to like business execution. It's like, you said you're going to make YouTube use this content creators and you're going to do this. It's like, why wasn't he showing up in space? Like, Luca does a great job with Abstract, as does their team. Look at how Abstract's team is executing on their content creators, who they're looking at as their top content creators. And think about if Frank had done that in his prime, when every tweet he had was cooking because everyone had notifications on, what he could have done for the youth content creators. It could have been a game changer. But let's get Joey in here and then go back to Jack. Joey, GM.
Yeah, guys, I'm not going to be that aggressive. I promise. I do have an issue with Cap's initial he's young point, because from the beginning of my quote unquote DeGods arc, anti DeGods arc, one of my biggest points of reference was I don't understand why people are putting so much faith and trust into this 21-year-old that has done nothing. And I would get so much pushback on, well, you got to start somewhere. And he had a TED talk at his high school and this and all these things. And it's not fair. Age is just a number, and on and on and on. I said, listen, you can't replace experience. Yeah, you could be really smart at that age, but you can't replace business experience. You can't just all of a sudden know how to run a multi-million-dollar company at 21 years old. Like, you're talking about unicorns, right? Like, and even then you're talking about unicorns of a unicorn. And so that's my first pushback on, like, we can't now give him grace on his age when for so long, and I'm not saying, Cap, you were one that would give me pushback on the age, but I don't think it's a fair point when for so long a lot of people did point at his age as one of the reasons why, me including one of them.
Joey, hold on real quick. Joey, hold on, Joey, real quick though. I think you're playing this all wrong. Like, you were correct about your initial assertion. We are now saying that is correct, and you're like, you can't say that now. It's like, no, it's not like, we're saying, like, we were, a lot of people were saying, like, look, you have to see what happens. There are a ton of, younger people who have been successful. We look at that, and now, like, you get to play the result and be like, look, this is something that I said was a concern from the beginning, and now you're bringing it back up. Like, I would flip the way you're talking about it and get the chip off the shoulder and just say, look, this is a concern I flagged from the beginning, and now we're here. And, like, I agree with you. Like, it's something where it's not an excuse that we're giving, but we're saying the assertion was correct because we assumed, and our pushback on this show was not his age specifically. Our pushback on this show was that you had Kevin, who had been accomplished, who had a lot of things, who had that life experience, who was trying to guide that hand, and you had the marketer with the business experience. And our pushback was never necessarily like the young thing is an issue, more so that he had a pairing, which is what you want for somebody who is, when I was younger, I wish I had a mentor. Until I was 27, I didn't have a mentor who was in their like 50s or, who was 40s and 50s, who was like really, really brilliant. And that helped 10x me and keep me in control and figure that stuff out. So I think like you can play the result here and be like, look, I was right about the young concern, especially after Kevin left. But we were wrong to think that Kevin was going to be able to kind of like handle that part of the business, is what we always thought was happening on the back end. So that's where I would say, like, I get your point and you are correct to make it. But I think it's just hey, guess who was right, guys? Like, I think it's like, you're strutting like Vince McMahon down the aisle now.
Should I do a backflip and slow trot my home run? Is that what I should do?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I
Do a
would,
bat
yeah,
toss.
definitely.
Yeah. And then the thing, and here's the other thing too that I look back on as one of the things that people in this space did talk very positively on, when they were like, I always said that you need to have, as an entrepreneur, as a founder, you have to have like the inability, you have to have the ability to go for it, right? You can't be afraid, you can't be scared, but you also have to show some humbleness, right? You have to show some ability to acknowledge what you don't know and all those things. And everybody was like, no, Frank, and I was like, listen, he needs to be more humble. He can't talk to people this way. He can't act like this. He needs to, they're like, no, that's his personality. It's what people love about him. And I was like, well, I think it's a bad trait. And in hindsight, it ended up being that way, because you can't just be, I'm the best all the time and not take a step back. And the idea with pivoting, which goes with this, is he kept pivoting and extracting because people thought he was, like this pillar of amazingness. You can pivot without extracting, to Jack's point. Jack was like, every pivot was an extraction. You can pivot, you can try points parlor and all these other things without extracting millions of dollars. We've seen it with other projects. So I think at the end of the day, we can say like, oh, and I think by now we all know about Amazon. Yeah. So I don't know if that was like a big secret, but I'm pretty sure most people know that they were part of that Amazon deal by now. But yeah, they had to pivot, but you didn't have to extract millions of dollars with every pivot. And I do agree, Utes is the biggest miss.
Oh,
yeah, no, I agree. Like, look, I mean, we said, like, again, my take on it, and like, One thing I tend to be generally good at, like, and this is just my personal, people can agree, disagree, whatever. One thing I tend to be pretty good at is I'm pretty good at, even when I have financial invested in things, I can be relatively objective about where I screwed up, where someone else screwed up. And that's where it's like, I'm trying to have a more even keel conversation where I agree with the things you said, Joey. I think you're right. Like, they could have done it. But like, my interpretation of that is my main interpretation of the second part you said is that it was poorly run. Like, if they had made use of the content creating PFP, I believe they could have delivered on it. They didn't. They didn't execute. They didn't execute on the BTC DeGods being the highest level of membership. They didn't execute on the DeGods cruise they talked about after they had done NFT NYC and literally made $500,000 showing up and eating pizza with people and getting a hotel paid for. Like, they didn't execute on like all of the things that they said they were going to do. And I think the points that people are making is like, I'm not trying to say that in a harsh way. Like, this isn't meant to be like, I don't know, like, we thought DGen was going to be like a decentralized media company. We all had other jobs and other things going on, and it became sort of like fractured in a lot of ways. And like, not everybody executes and lands the plane on everything they do. Like, oh, we want a smaller team, not a bigger team. We don't want to manage content creators. We just want it to be me and Cap. Like, all these things, like, people learn along the way in business. Now, how you handle that matters. And we've tried to handle it the utmost, given that Cap and I have not made money off DGen. In fact, have paid out 6 figures as a company to people before ultimately kind of being like, yeah, we're kind of like laying off, trying to get other content creators. We probably ran it a little differently. We have the benefits of age and wisdom and sort of, things that we were trying to do there. But my interpretation is like, it was just poorly run. Points Power was an interesting concept. It wasn't well run. It was rewarding loyalty and staking and all these other things and these points that you were getting and like the constant bridging. It was like, you wanted to be the PFP on Polygon. Did you really work with them as a partner? Did you really work with them hard to make it successful? Or did you go over there because it was a thing you were trying to do? And then you're like, you know what? This didn't work after the first 2 months. We're sputtering out the gate. It's like, I don't know. If I eat healthy and work out for a week and I don't have 6-pack abs, it doesn't mean that I stop eating healthy and working out. It means that I haven't worked at it hard enough and done it. And look, there's times when you got to cut bait and decide that in businesses too, and startups. I just think that if I'm trying to retrospectively look at the failures here that happened, ultimately, I think a lot of it was overhype, which we all talked about as a problem. A lot of it was failure to set expectations properly. And a lot of it was a failure to execute on the ideas that they put forward.
But Steve, it's also about surrounding yourself with the right people. Like, how many times do we see pictures of the DeGods team in a house, and you look at like what the team was made, and I don't know any of them personally. I just know from what I've been told about their previous experience. Outside of Kevin, who on the DeGods team that was appointed COO or president or whatever brought any experience outside of being in an NFT?
Sure, that's fair, but I would say Kevin probably brought more experience than 90% of the other Web3 co-founders. So I get your point that it was a younger team, but Kevin was supposed to be the adult in the room, and I think he was. It's just that didn't work out. But yeah, I get your point. It was a young team, but Kevin probably had more real life experience and credentials than the majority of Web3 founders or co-founders.
Yeah,
Does anybody know the story of how Kevin and Frank found each other? How that partnership happened?
There's a thread on it.
Yeah, there's a whole thread on it you can find. It's from
Okay, cool.
there actually legitimately is. Like, they met each other at, I believe it was either YCOM or shortly after with this first business, and they worked together and they met, and they, like, maybe it was when Frank was in Y Combinator. Look, the other thing I want to say is, like, Frank's not stupid. Like, he is a smart individual. He is a high IQ individual, like, regardless of what you think of him. So I get it. I think people saw a smart guy who was very well spoken, who created a cult, who had these ideas that people were excited about. I don't think they executed well. He paired with a business experience person. I mean, it's like, who on the Pudgy team outside of Luca has like tons of experience? And again, I don't know them that well, but it is a younger looking team. I don't think that they don't have the ability to land the plane. I think they've executed as well as anybody. And you got to surround yourself with the right people. Joey is right about that. Like, and I think my retrospect when I look on it is that I don't think it was intentionally extractive. I think they poorly executed, didn't land the plane on stuff. And I don't think, like, if I'm being honest, like, they probably weren't ever really that passionate about everything when you really looked at it. Like, were they ever really passionate about this community, or did they lose their luster at some point? Did they get bored with it at some point? Was it the mountain they stopped climbing at some point? Because it feels like if you are dedicated to making something work, like when I take a job, any job, like when I took a job at Progressive and like I was in charge of building the recruitment marketing department because we were trying to get people to come to Cleveland, Ohio, instead of going to Google and getting all sorts of benefits. I treated myself like I was CEO of that department, and everything I eat, slept, and breathed was about that beyond my family, right? Like my family's the most important thing. Then it's like that job's it, right? When I take a job at, leading frozen foods PR for Nestle, it was like, how are we getting DiGiorno on Jimmy Fallon? Like, how are we getting it on James Corden? How are people going to see it more and more? And I think like when you're leading a company, it needs to be like, you need to be irrationally dedicated to thinking that is the most important thing in the world. And if you make a promise, like, how do you deliver on that in the best way possible? How do you make that work? And I think in this instance, like, they fell short in that level of execution for whatever reason. Only they can tell you what that is. But it felt like they would make a promise. They'd be like, all right, we need to sell. It felt like it was backwards. It felt like, okay. And again, this is from hearsay. I don't know this for a fact. Our treasury wasn't managed super well. We need to raise money. We were going to sell BTC DeGods because ordinals are hot right now. When we sell these ordinals, what are we going to sell them on? Okay, highest membership of the community. Cool. Okay, that makes sense. We can deliver on that. And then they sold them, and then they didn't deliver on it. And it was like, oh, like they should have been doing one-to-one sales on that shit, right? Like one-to-one discussions with people like Jack about how they're going to help them if you're going to make that promise. And I think that's where a lot of this stuff was missed. I just don't, like, when you say Utes are going to be the content creators PFP, how bullish was everybody on that? Frank's a master of attention. He tweets and it gets ripped up. Like, one of the utilities he said is like, you join this community to say something good, I retweet you. Congrats. You just got 50,000 impressions. Why didn't they continue down that path? Like, why didn't he show up to all the spaces? Why didn't he say, we're going to have a team, we're going to deputize people on the DeGods team, I'm going to tell everyone, like, Frank, he would jump, people would say how high. Why didn't he say, I'm going to have you set notifications for my chief communications officer, and they're going to go to every single space that I see you hosting, and they're going to make that the biggest space there. We're going to send all the people there, and we're going to raid every single space. Like, those things is like, and again, I'm not saying that I could run an NFT project properly. Like, again, I'm not saying that I'm that guy who could make all this work well. I just think like the execution, I'm giving top of the mind, back a napkin idea examples. Not saying all these would have worked. My point being, I think it was as much a failure of execution and ability to land the plane on the things, the promises they made. And that's a problem. And Jack should be pissed off about that based on somebody who's deep in the ecosystem. But I also think it's not a malicious intent. It's just poorly executed like a lot of these brands. I think they are the most public, highest profile version of a lot of things we saw coming out of 2021. But Jack, go ahead and get back in here. I know you've been champing at the bit.
Honestly, guys, like I wouldn't even say I was upset at this point. That was a year ago. And I'm not pissed off. I think my biggest concern now is not Frank. Like, he takes up almost none of my mind share. And I know that probably sounds like bullshit, but genuinely is true at this point. Like, I've had those moments. It just, like, when I see it now, it would probably be the same as if I saw Kevin Rose, like, when he's like, oh, we're going to revive Dig. It's like, okay, I won't be a part of that, but I really, like, I have learnt my lesson on those dudes. Like, I could not give a single fuck. I think there's two main takeaways that I would like just the space to understand about this. And this is the concern I have, is they're not getting it. And one of them is the morality and the accountability of what this guy's behavior actually says about how you can behave in a space. And at the end of the day, I think it's a complete lack of moral compass from somebody who is young. And I think we need to make sure that that lack of moral compass does not repeat itself, or that we at least understand that's what that is. And specifically, like, we'll go back to the BTC DeGods. And the reason I use this as an example isn't because I have funds tied to it, because I had funds tied to Utes at a similar value, and DeGods, ETH, and fucking Sol and everything in between at a similar value. My point about the BTC DeGods, when you think about accountability for what you sell, this was the easiest thing to execute on. You just said it was the most premium thing that you were going to build. So all that requires is whatever you do build, you give the BTC DeGods a shot at that, and probably a priority shot. If you think of a premium gym, it doesn't mean you're excluded from areas of the gym. It means that you have all the basic necessities that that gym provides, and then some value on top of that that the normal members do not get. And that's all these guys had to do. And they couldn't even do that. And at this point specifically, it almost, like, if this is any other space, it reminds me of the Fire Festival guy. Like, it actually reminds me of like this would be criminal in any regulated industry, and to point morally at the idea that, look, I didn't do anything illegal in a space that is so not regulated at the time that you really can't do anything illegal unless you're fully stealing from somebody and then rugging and tornado cashing out of the space is so preposterous to me. And the idea that anybody is justifying or coming to protect that individual for that type of behavior needs to be looked at, because that realistically, in any other sense of the word, would be a criminal behavior. Like, if you sell something in any industry, in almost any part of the globe, and say, look, these are the things that I promise you, you're going to spend $20,000 as an individual to receive, and then you just go silent and you don't execute on literally one element of the things that you promised. And I do mean that, like, not a singular element of the things that you promised, that is criminal behavior at a certain point, or it's at least a moral behavior to a degree that should be concerning to anybody who still wants to be in this space and doesn't want to see that same behavior repeat itself. So anyone protecting that behavior, I think that's just a big, big thing. And then just a really final point on this whole, like, what was he doing for the community? I think it was just the disdain for the community at the end of the day. I think the loudest voices became the most disheartened voices, which became the most aggressive voices in the space. I think these guys actually disliked the community by the end. And I think the message that has been put forward was that. And this idea that NFTs are dead, so what does it matter, is the second, like, the most important part of this. That's what a lot of people are saying right now. Do you know how many industries were called dead for like a decade? The comic book industry, the skateboarding industry. Anime is freaking massive right now. It was dead for 30 years in the Western markets. We can't have that behavior, or people justifying the behavior on the fact that this industry is dead, so why does it matter? And they're just the two big takes. It's the morality take, and it's the idea that you can stop giving a shit because the industry is quiet right now. And I think we just need to get past that, and we need to not let that happen again.
I agree. Good take. I know we have hands here. We'll get around the room. Jack, what do you think is next? Do you have faith in the new leadership? Are you going to continue to hold your assets? Are you out and moving on? Is there any chance for DeGods or Utes, in your opinion, to be relevant 5-10 years from now at this point?
Not without a sale to an individual like Luca. And since that was a one in, I don't know how many collections that are out there now in NFTs, but let's just say conservatively 1 in a million chance. I don't believe the current guys who have basically just watched DeGods run the same way it has run for the past 4 years and have been, basically a part of that industry and the growth vehicle that was DeGods. I don't believe they're the people to bring this back to life right now. Do we know if
there's any treasury left? Has that been shared or no?
Who?
Do we know if there's any treasury left, or has that been shared?
No, and this is another thing, Cap, is like the transparency of the leave. It's like, okay, so where is the money? How much of the money is it? Where did it get spent? Like, none of this you're going to address. You're literally just going to say, I didn't do anything criminal, guys. At least from a legal standpoint in an unregulated market, bye. Like, this is literally like, it just boggles my mind.
Well, Steve, I'll let you take us in hands. Jack, appreciate you coming up and sharing today. You've got a lot of compliments in the chat. People are agreeing, spot on, agree with Jack. So I appreciate you sharing. I know it's got while you don't seem too down on it, it still has to be a little bit of a sting. So I appreciate you sharing this morning and giving your perspective, and it helps. I thought your thread I pinned up top is very well said.
Yeah. I'll appreciate you, Jack. And again, like good pushback. And I love the discussion there where it's like, everyone's going to have a different perspective on it. I will say to the point you made, I'll read the announcement from Pasta, who's taking over. It goes, TLDR, Frank stepped out as CEO. So what's next? In the coming weeks, we're releasing something for the people still here, in homage to the last 3 years and everything we built together. After that, things will look different. DeGods was at its best when it was chaotic, creative, and fun. You paid attention because you didn't know what was coming next, but you knew you had to see it. Our job isn't to build crypto products. It's to make DeGods as big as it can possibly be. That's what you want. That's what we want too. So that's exactly what we're going to do. It's a What's that, Cap? You were muted. You're muted.
So new art coming in a few weeks?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, like, it's a very vague, like...
It's the same roadmap, basically, guys, right? Like, it's just like if Frank was still here and he just stepped back in, that's exactly the words he would say.
And I agree. I think if there is a chance for success, it's not taking a shot at the two people who are taking over. It's just, I think it would be much more likely if it was someone from the outside, somebody who has not been there for the last 3-4 years.
It's dated. It's just a dated like it feels like, I'm trying to think of like a good, it's almost like if somebody came out and launched an NFT project tomorrow and they're like, hey, so we're going to have metaverse land and you're also going to get a car that you can drive in the metaverse. And also you're going to get this house over here. And it's like, it's dated. It's like, that's like a very, to me, dated way to think about it, to be like, vaguely, we're going to make DeGods the biggest thing ever. It's like, right now you have Luca talking about what they're doing for the token, what they're doing for abstract, what they're doing for global distribution, how they're putting penguins in different places, right? You have Doodles building the entire AI platform and saying, this is the reason that you're doing this, right? You have, Yuga Labs, like really pushing hard towards Ape Chain and changing the way they're doing things there, and the club and Ape Fest. And this is the value proposition of being in this club. You have VFriends talking about, we're building a brand, like all of those things. And then you have DeGods kind of saying, meh, right? Like it's like, hey, let's just make this really big. Like, guys, wouldn't it just be good if we just said, fuck it and be legends? It's like, that's not a roadmap anymore. And like, I think that's where we're at. And I think like, I get it. They're like trying to recapture what it was when it was its best. But if Bored Ape Yacht Club went back and said, what we're going to do is we're going to like talk about celebrities holding, and we're just going to talk about hyping the floor. Oh, by the way, we're going to release a new mutant where you can make a mutant off your mutant. Like, they couldn't do that.
Sorry to interject, but a rumor is on the street, Guy is back and cooking.
Yeah, I saw that. But it's like, you can't go back and recapture, like, the past is the past, man. It's like, you ever go out with your old like college buddies and maybe it's good for like one night, but then like by the next night, you're like, all right, we're old, we're over this. It doesn't quite work the same. Or you get together with a group of old friends and things are a little off and somebody's got to leave to go, FaceTime with their kids. And it's like, it's not the same as it was when you were taking a leak on the back of a public bus. I'm sorry. It's just different. Like, everybody's got like, and like, that's, like, it's not the same as when you were like, hey, maybe I can, like, I had a buddy who, there was a 2-story bar in Ohio State that he climbed down from story 1 to story 2. It was completely like, that's not where we're at. We're not recapturing that. We're not walking to Ohio State football games at 9 a.m, hammered from drinking all morning. It's like, that's not the place we're at anymore. And like, at some point you need to say it's a different roadmap, it's a different time, it's a different place in life, and that's okay. But good luck to them. I hope they recapture it, but I understand where Jack's concern is there, because it does sound like a tweet that Frank would put out. Like, it sounds like a Frank tweet. It sounds like Frank wrote it. Brett, you got the blacked out Ute Billy PFP. Shout out Billy Betts. I was actually explaining Billy Betts. I was at dinner with some friends on Saturday, just another couple, while we had our daughter was babysitting all the kids. And I talked about Billy Betts. And they got it. But Brett, go ahead and get in here. GM.
Hey, GM gang. I appreciate the love for Billy. This is it's interesting. Woke up to see all the Frank stuff, and I like, unfortunately, I can't like say I'm surprised. I mean, he's been kind of MIA, since all of the insider trading. You're just not connected, blah blah blah, right? I mean, whatever you want to call legal, not legal, whatever, right? But like, at the end of the day, I think it was I'm pretty sure it was Rocky, the movie Rocky. He said something, I'll loosely quote that, it's not a matter of how hard you hit, it's how hard you can get hit and keep going, something like that. And ultimately, I mean, he's just going to go down like the Beanie Maxis and Zagabonds and Kevin Roses and I mean, all of these ex-founders that ultimately just blamed their lack of dedication, drive, and commitment to a project on, oh well, we learned some things and we messed around and blah blah blah. It's just, I don't know, man. I think that ultimately I see it happening. We'll get a CTO probably, right? We'll get some sort of community takeover, and that might hype up things just long enough for people that have huge bags to sell, get out, try to recover something, and then it'll go the way of Pixelmon, or any of the other Moonbirds, or I mean, it's just another one. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not, I have my Ute, never got into the DeGods, was always kind of priced out of those guys, but like, at the end of the day, I liked Utes. I liked the art. I still think the art slaps, you know, and I think that, you know, ultimately Frank is kind of, you know, he sleeps in his own bed. You know what I mean? Like he's the one that's going to have to deal with this ultimately. And I think Jack kind of nailed it, you know, that like at this point, it's like, you know, it really speaks to your moral character kind of thing, you know, even if you did want to step down, you know, again, I think whoever just mentioned it, the transparency around it, you know, it's kind of like, dude, if you are that smart, then like you should be smart enough to understand what it's like to be a professional and how to handle things professionally. And I don't think I've ever seen him do anything professionally, you know. So we'll see what happens. You know, hopefully, you know, I hope for his own sake that he does not get indicted, and with all of the other insider trading BS kind of, you know, market manipulation stuff that I think is coming for him and his group of, you know, cronies essentially. I think that's probably going to come down the pipeline. Hopefully he can, you know, do well with that, but I just want to see who's going to take this shit over.
Do we think,
you know,
just a genuine question. Do we think TG's return to the timeline and Frank stepping down are correlated?
I think that ultimately they're both being advised by legal in some way, shape, or form.
I guess that's correct. I think, you know, I think a lot of fair points there as far as how things are handled. It's hard because, I mean, and to be fair, like people are like, oh, like, are you glazing or whatever? We had a conversation at one point on the show about, is there material like risk to Luca being so close with Frank when the LA Vape Cabal stuff was happening? And he was saying, I don't care about, you know, DeGods. I've done what I can.
See, my perspective feels like that relationship is distanced. Maybe it's just distanced publicly, but I haven't, like, it just feels, just my anecdotal perception is that there's a little bit of distance there.
It might have been a public decision, right? Like, I mean, everybody's had to have those hard conversations about, like, I don't know, like, I had a show with T-Moss. He released some random thing and I canceled it. It was doing well. Nobody, it sounds silly now, but there was a 16-year-old crazy trader by the name of Shamdu who nobody would talk to. And we got permission to have him on her show from him and his parents. And it was a huge deal. And like, it did ridiculous streaming numbers on like our second show. You know, by our third show, we had On-Chain Monkey on right after their launch. I bought one live on air. That community went nuts. Like, we were cooking, but he did something I didn't agree with. And I ended the show. And my relationship with him has been distant since, because not that I abandoned him. Behind the scenes, I talked to him at the time, and I was like, look, man, I don't want you to go down a really dark path. If you need help, you're always my phone is always open. You're always want to text me.
I'm going to send him a DM. Actually, I don't even know if I'm not connected with him, but I'm going to thank him for being a grifter that created that led to my future co-host.
But yeah, it's like, it's a thing where it's like, you know, like sometimes that happens. So maybe that's what happened with Luca. Like, it's very well possible that he could be very close to these guys behind closed doors and being like, look, like, you know, I'm here for you as a friend, but like, I can't move the same way you move. And you understand how that is. Like, that's part of life sometimes in business. But yeah, like we did have that conversation about like Luca and him and their material risk, or even Thread Guy. And because Thread Guy was relatively clean and, you know, he got caught up in the whole Libra thing after he had the FaZe Banks call and all that, but like talked about his, you know, connection point with Frank, which, by the way, like, well, I'm not even going to get into that and go down a different path there. But like, I guess my point being, like, we did hit on it. We have hit on negative things that have happened. It's just, I think like what I try to do when things happen is I try to take a global perspective. Like, do I think there was negative intent? I don't. Do I think there was questionable intent at times where they were like basically putting something out and saying, we'll figure it out later? Absolutely. And I think a lot of brands in Web3 do that. I think a lot of brands in Web3 will put out an announcement. I know that happens with certain Web3 brands that I'm not going to cite, where they would actually say something behind the scenes and then the team would be like, we now have 2 weeks to figure out how we're going to deliver on this from our leader. Like, I know that has happened for a fact. With
some K-Ro's entire reign as CEO of Moonbirds. That was just, he's kept, you know, rinse and repeating that let's put this out. We have no idea what it is, but we're going to pretend like we have something coming in 6 months. And if we don't deliver what I have no idea what I'm going to deliver, then you can fund me. And we did.
Himself. But that's, I guess that's like the thing that I would say, like, that I'll kind of land the plane on there is like, I'm trying to look at it from a global retrospective perspective. Was it poorly run? I think probably. I think we've heard enough stories about the treasury to know that, and that's people say that's why they did Bitcoin DeGods, because it was not a great treasury. Was it not well executed on their promises? I think the answer is certainly yes. And I think to Jack's point, would there be consumer protection issues in other industries? And could there even be in this industry where people will be like, hey, you didn't deliver upon this, explain from a reasonable perspective how you delivered on this? Like, it's not worth the problem, but like Jack and the Bitcoin DeGods could in theory go there and just, you know, basically show all the things they didn't deliver on despite what they said out loud, and show that and probably cite it and have a case. Is it worth chasing down class action? That's for anybody else to decide. I'm not saying anybody should do that, but I think the point Jack made, like in other industries, you might do that, or at the very least, your business would shut down because you failed, right? If I say I'm going to deliver something, my business would shut down. Blockchain's forever. Those collectibles always exist, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like I could sue. There was a PFP I bought because Bunchu had gotten a PFP made that was a really cool version of him. And I was working with these people. I bought one specifically because I wanted one made for me. It was this custom personalized PFP. They never delivered it and they rugged. Could I go after them? Sure. Is that bad in any industry? Yes. Did I know the risk buying it? Also, yes. And I think like from a retrospective perspective, my point of view, I'm not saying it's right, is that one, they didn't execute on things as much as they did. Two, they made promises they couldn't deliver on, and they probably bit off more than they could chew. And then three, I think Jack's exactly right. I'll tell you what, I think a lot of brands get contempt for holders in this space, because a lot of holders, there is this like spectrum of holders where you go from like right below the most passionate defend the wall holders. You have a group of people who want to love the brand, who get really pissed when you don't land on things. And I think that group that's very loud can be the biggest supporters when things go well and the biggest detractors when things don't. And I think that group can make up someone really jaded. And at some point, you say to yourself, we've heard Garga say it. We've heard Garga say it. He has said it out loud about holders specifically. I made these people six figures. I airdropped them free money over and over again. And now they are our biggest detractors. He's like, you have to understand from Garga's perspective why that's a very confusing thing. You built something and created something that printed money for people. You always said what you were going to build and do and work towards. And now suddenly those same people are telling you why you're horrible and making threats and everything else. Like, so I think as a leader, they probably were like, you know, 90% of this community can be tough and they're only in it to buy it and sell it to someone for more money. And they don't care about what I'm actually trying to do. But I think on the other hand, when you don't execute on the countless things, you end up there. But let's get Jack back in here, and then we'll do the more you know sort of reverse order. We probably should have done it first, but we'll do the more you know on this, and we'll keep it cooking. But Jack, go ahead and get back in here.
Yeah, look, guys, I just completely agree. I actually want to come to your defense, because we were on the show together for like a long, long time. And obviously people listening right now might not even know like how many times you let this little British dude hop up on stage, even though his monologues were longer than some of your 2.5 3-hour episodes. But all of that being said, we discussed everything on this show. And in no world did you guys at any point in time try and silence that because of concern these founders coming for you, however popular they were. Like, we talked about Moonbirds at their prime not executing. We talked about DeGods and their lack of execution in a ton of different ways on this show, both pro and against. Like we did absolutely everything we could to just transparently come at a conversation the way that we genuinely felt in terms of our own opinions. And I think overall, I still think to this day, your show is one of the only shows that you can say that for, where people, when they have been part of that community for a long, long time, can just come out and voice their opinions and get a genuine, transparent opinion back. And that value to the space goes so unnoticed sometimes. And like, for anybody saying you guys are glazing, or anybody at all that doesn't have the lore or history, I just want to double click on the fact that, guys, I was there literally for, I think it was genuinely over a year, for like 3 hours Monday to Friday. And I can just tell you, like, fundamentally, this is the most transparent show where you can actually share those opinions in the whole entire space. And I've been here for long enough to be able to say that, in my opinion. And I've also spent time on all of those shows for long enough to also be able to say that.
Really appreciate that. And hey, none of our opinions are wrong often. Like, we're definitely, I mean, shit, I'm still holding ETH. I guess now it's not a wrong bet, but no,
you just low key flex.
We are, we will share opinions. We're not always right. And I do think, like, I do want to acknowledge those that say, hey, we didn't we didn't hold him accountable, or we didn't talk about all the bad things that were happening. I don't know if it's like.
Well, Cap, we did like proof of work when they scrapped that. I rinsed those guys.
We did it at a point. I think
we did
like, over the last year. I don't know if I could probably count on one, probably certainly two hands, the amount of times we've talked about Frank on the show over the past year. We just stopped talking about him over the last year. When he was experimenting and doing things, yeah, did we talk about him? Sure. And some of the things we were, I think, candid that it wasn't maybe not the greatest idea. We did not pour on when things started unwinding. And I just, from my perspective, it's like we just weren't active like trenchers. Like I would watch Thread Guys stream every once in a while, but it wasn't something we were well versed on, or really like we would have been just regurgitating what other people were saying on the timeline without having any facts. It was, is this actually Frank's wallet? Like we just weren't close to it. And so it's not that we don't call out things when they're maybe not right. It's just, we just stopped paying attention over the past year. But to your point, Jack, we certainly did. I felt give our best to give both sides of the story early on when things were like, I feel like during the experimentation stage. And then, like I said, I can't remember the last time we actually had, other than this, before this, I can't remember the last time we actually had a more than a flyover conversation about DeGods or Utes or Frank, Steve.
Yeah, but you guys can't, right? Like at the end of the day, like the financial bias that comes from both elements of the takes on the timeline, I don't think like you realistically can justify talking about those takes without being able to provide real evidence for it. And it's not like even if you did your own research, you could find that information. Like it was so like just absolutely just the rumor mill. And that's what X is for the most part. And like now, like there's maybe a little bit more to do. So guys, yeah, I don't be too hard on yourselves here, because I just don't think you can justifiably talk about rumors consistently when people have so many bags tied to those rumors and their own agendas connected to them as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think like this is a situation too where, I mean, a couple of things. I think one, like your point, like we do have the conversations and we welcome people to come and push back on us. Like this morning we started off and we're like, look, he's young. Let's have this conversation. And I don't think Cap and I have checked the replies a lot with the people glazing or whatever. We were just kind of reacting in the spot. And a lot of people came up and were like, Joey's like, yeah, when I said that before, like people didn't, people were like, what do you say? Like, fair point. Like you brought up some fair points, especially. And so like, we're always going to give our perspectives. We're going to have a flexible opinion to change our mind on things. And we did talk about some of the negative things when they'd happen. But the truth is, like, I'll be honest, like, and I'll just echo what Cap said before we'll go to we'll do more, before we go to Bossa, actually, real quick. I'll echo what Cap said, which is we generally love early stage technology. Genuinely, that is our feeling. We love to talk about what people are building. We love to talk about the opportunities. Tech builds on other tech. So like, when somebody has, NFT ticketing in a few years and it becomes a normal thing, let's not forget that VFriends put that as original utility. Let's not forget the clunky 8Fest wristbands they had to do to verify NFTs that we made work possible to ultimately get to this point. Tech is iterative and builds, and I think a lot of people think it goes from point A to point Z in a straight line. And I think the part where I find the most contention, I see people make commentaries of like, oh, whether it's PFPs or all this other stuff, like, Web3 NFTs are a scam. It's like people experimenting with the tech is how somebody else learns and uses it in an authentic way to make it possible and builds those elements. In fact, I could fill a 287-page book on it because I did. And so I think that there are things that you can learn about that matter, like those iterative things along the way. Not everything's going to be perfect. And in the wake of destruction, there are going to be failed businesses. It just so happened those failed businesses are more intertwined with us financially now than ever before because that's how crypto operates. But our goal is to say, hey, look at the way Billy Betts is approaching, betting, and it's different, gambling and using AI in an innovative way and the way it's releasing it onto the world, the way it's fun. Like, we're going to talk about that because it's interesting and it's positive. To Cap's point, we didn't talk about a lot of DeGods stuff when it's like disappearing off the timeline and becoming less relevant because it's not doing the things that we're interested in. We didn't talk about the LA Vape Cabal a ton on this space because as much as like that, a lot of people are in those meme coin worlds and that's fine. We weren't trench trading and it didn't really speak to my personal interest and it wasn't really on Cap's personal interest. He did a little more memeing than me, but like, I guess my point being like, we want to highlight things that are being built. Not everything's going to work. We always say not financial advice. We're 1,000% transparent of what we buy, sell, and trade. I was actually going to start off. I forgot to say, like, I sold all my Dude token this weekend. I actually sold it right around the top after the initial top. That's not a knock on Doodles. I think I can buy it back lower when I use DreamNet, and I need to buy some stuff at my house. So made some cash, bought a little Bitcoin, and gonna buy myself a couch. We were hoping it was gonna be new car range in the token drop. Turned out it was new couch range. Fine. But like, I guess like the point is we're generally transparent and we haven't talked much about it. And like, could we be more critical? I suppose. I don't see value on ranting and piling on unless it's really, really significant, right? Like if something is really big, we talk about it. When the Hayden Davis thing went down, we broke it down and we broke down all the different people who could potentially be involved. But I mean, like these day-to-day things, it's like, we'll talk about where people might have missed and it might make sense. We'll talk about things we care about personally, but I think like we want to see the space move forward. And if people want to come up and push back on us or bring things up, we'll talk about it. But like, you know, like it's like we'll hit it for a day and we'll continue to move on. So I think it's important to like have that context to it. To your point, because we're never gonna lie, we're gonna give you an honest opinion. We are where we are. That said, Cap, I'm gonna go ahead and then I'll do more. Right after.
Well, you know who was right about this entire time, Steve? You know who's right about Utes?
Who's that?
Nifty Noon Newsletter says, please bring Bobby Saskatchewan on stage. A live debate on NFTs would be interesting.
Wait, what?
Nifty Noon Newsletter in the chat says, please bring Bobby Saskatchewan on stage. A live debate on NFTs would be interesting.
You know what's actually really interesting, and I'll hit on that, is there's a person who's been like kind of listen, well, number one, I think like there's a person in who like you know what's really interesting is they attack me a lot when like I agree with like the Venn diagram that overlaps. I actually agree with a large percentage of what they say. So like there are people who do this. I'm guessing it's an alt account like who's trying to get him on the stage to debate the whole thing.
No. They saw the back and forth this weekend.
Oh,
so they were. It was like an inside baseball joke there.
Yeah, I mean, long story short, like I'll just give a quick hit on this, and actually I'll go to Bossa before we do more, so we can push it back because it's worth saying. Like, the part that's wild to me is I agree with a large part of the general thesis of what he says. How he goes about it is absolutely poor, right? There's a guy who basically fuds me and Cap exclusively. It's very strange because I'm the guy who wrote a book about NFT applications outside of PFPs and how it can actually change the world in business. I'm a huge proponent of that. And when I talk to companies and universities, he just but I think he loses a sense of nuance and doesn't understand certain things and doesn't have the education on the things we talk about. Whatever. I don't really want to get into individuals, but people will say things like that. I agree. I would say 99% of this stuff's going to zero for 4 years for a reason. And then when it happens, we're not surprised. We're not but it wasn't going to be my bags. We're oh, okay, here's why it happened. And here's where they could have done things differently. My prerogative is to look at a thing that's happening as it is, not how I want it to be. It's just what is happening here? How could it be executed better? How might I have done it differently with the power of hindsight, which is a very powerful thing without the fog of war that's going on at the time. And then I move from there. And I actually, he put out a whole post this weekend, though, the guy you're talking about. I'm I don't know. I agree with a lot of that. I agree that a lot of the things in NFTs, not everything, it's not a big blanket statement, but I think the Venn diagram's close. It's just, I see the value of iterative growth in technology. I see the value of what some of these brands, even that are no longer here, I see the value of what Tally Labs did. I see the value of what, even though they're not here anymore, I see the value of where that could turn to something in the future. So I think it's important to recognize, I wrote a book where I said that the speculative nature of NFTs and the over-financialization doesn't make sense. I said why we got there in an article that I was working on that I didn't end up releasing because I got sidetracked on some things. But I also think there's value there. And I think there's value in the learning and everything that comes along with it. I don't think everybody is carte blanche a grifter who comes in and tries to build a business. And I also think it's really reductive to go to someone who is spending 18 hours a day and ruining their life trying to build something truly and call them a grifter, right? I think that's silly, right? That's not what they're doing. If they're a grifter, they would have fucked off on the beach after a sale, right? Make fun of Garga and then he comes back when he already secured the bag. He's trying to build his business. He has a choice. But let's do this. Let's go to Bossa, then we'll do more, after that, just because I kind of went on a different rant there. But Bossa, go ahead and get in here, GM.
Dude, what is going on, guys? First of all, can I say long-time listener, first-time speaker, I believe. It's 7 a.m. here. One of my favorite morning spaces is this one. But I just want to come in here, share my own little 2 cents on this whole Frank scenario. The first one being that I think Jack already highlighted really well on like how much this impacts the monetary side of the DeGods community. But I think what really hurts the most, and especially I myself as a non-holder, I saw DeGods as more as like a media brand, or I don't know if media brand's the right word, but like as a creative brand more than it is of like an NFT project. And when you look at NFT projects in that perspective, I feel like it brings a whole different view on like the potential of these type of brands, right? Like I almost view it in the same limelight as Doodles being probably one of the most creative NFT projects out there, and it can perform really well even without Web3 and blockchain attached to it, you know? And so I feel for almost like the creatives in the DeGods community and how much has impacted them. And then my second point too was, you know, when I look at Frank as like a person, like I myself, I'm 25, I'm in my mid 20s. I want to say we're around the same age. I don't know Frank like that, but this to me is like a part of this maturation process for NFTs, right? Like in 21, 22, we literally saw almost anyone, regardless of your background, your age, or whatever it is, launch an NFT project, and they had the likelihood of being successful. And so I feel like that narrative, that notion kind of carried over into this cycle, but we started to see like the long-term effects or like the long-term responsibilities of what is it really like to be having your own NFT project. And I myself, like as a previous owner of an NFT project, I can feel for Frank as like the pressure, the need to constantly deliver, and that shit catches up to you, you know? And so I myself, like I try to sit in the seat of, I don't want to judge people based on their actions, but clearly what's on paper and what's evident is there. But I just want to see Frank develop as a person moving forward, because I know this, you know, crypto's a scary place. People can freaking look you up. They can find him possibly one day in LA and do something terrible to him. But that's like the last thing I ever want to happen to Frank. If anything, I think he should just take this as like a growth curve, a learning curve, and maybe down the line he does something different this time, with whether it be an NFT project or not, and maybe he can apply those mistakes and, you know, or apply those learnings into that one. But yeah, just overall really enjoying the conversation. And again, you know, Captain and Steve, really love your guys' show, and again, just appreciate you guys for having me up here.
Right on. No, I appreciate the perspective. And I think even just like to your point, it's like, I think it's a really nice like way to position it, is like the amount of people who wish ill will on people. And that's where it's like intent matters. But there are people who like wish ill will on people without thinking about like, you know what, like, I hope this person, like, again, person we were just talking about who kind of goes after us, they were DMing me and I'm like, I don't wish ill will on you, even though you root for my demise for some odd reason, as I'm one of the only people championing your point of view, just not in an aggressive way like this. But it's like, I told them, I'm like, I don't wish ill will on you. I don't have a problem. I just think the way you approach things, like read your replies to a well-adjusted human and tell me if they think that that's normal or okay. Like, I don't think it's things you would be proud of as a human being in person. Like, if you respond and call somebody you've never met an idiot, if you're, you know, photoshopping or AI arting things that are pissing people, like, it's like the way I conduct myself online, I don't always succeed, but I think, would I be proud of this? If I type a message in Discord, if I type a message in a text, if I type a message on X, I have the thought process to think, if I read this in a week, am I going to be disappointed in myself for letting myself react this way? Or am I going to let my stoicism take over and I'm going to relax? And I think a lot of people, like, sometimes it's easy to get caught up and suddenly you find this rabbit hole and you're like, this happened to me when I was in Cleveland sports Twitter at one point, because there were some really nasty people who would come at it. And I was saying things, I'm like, this isn't me. This isn't who I am. And these aren't the discussions I have. This is a position in my brain that has pushed me in a bad spot because this person is just being an extra special kind of an asshole to me. And I'm responding with the same energy. Why? And I rarely do it, but it's like, sometimes I do that. I'm like, I don't see the benefit of that. So a lot of times I just like hit save. And that's why I recently deleted all my drafts. Cause I always say, if X had if drafts came out of X one day, if it just all published, I'd be fucked, because I have these things where I'll respond, save it as a draft. And I wake up the next day, I'm like, no way I want to send that shit. So I think, like, the point you made about like the kindness, like, let's keep that in mind. Like, there are human beings that exist that are out there trying to do things. And if they are not poor intent, or they didn't run it well, or they didn't land the plane on certain things, or things were too chaotic and the holders were at your throats and you were at the holders' throats, like it's tougher to navigate. And the man in the arena shit is real. Like, last thing I'll say on it, just because it's like a weird thing. Like, you mentioned the the guy who, was FUDs me and Cap. Like he wrote a FUD thread on my book specifically trying to like make fun of me. And it's like, bro, I published a book with one of the top publishers in the world. Like, it was a bestseller across multiple categories. Like, but like, some people hurt people. And oftentimes you need to be paying attention to what that is and deploy some level of empathy rather than, I don't get bitter. I just like, and I don't respond on those sort of things. And I get a lot of people saying like, I've had on the show and other things, like my amount of patience. I don't know what it is about it. I've said this, like I was telling the people I was eating dinner with this weekend, like I see the world as it is and I observe humans in an interesting way. And it's rare I'm like, fuck that person, that's a bad person. I'm like, why did that person act that way? And what did they have in their childhood that made them act that way? Or what do they have in their life that made them act that way? Or, oh, that person grew up poorly and that's why they act that way. Or, oh, they were hurt by this. Like, I don't really like, I think most humans are generally good. And I think most humans just get put in bad spots and make bad decisions until they learn better. And that's just kind of how I approach it. But I'm gonna do this, Cap. Go ahead. I'm gonna hit more then we'll go to Jakarta because I know we got to get this in here.
Nope, do it. Let's do it.
All right, we're gonna do the more and then we'll get to Jakarta in a second here.
The more you know, brought to you by ENS.
DeGods all morning. DeGods, do people know the history of DeGods, though? It's time for the more you know, brought to you by ENS. Let's talk DeGods history, just to go back through all the different pieces, because I had forgotten some of these pieces as I was going through and talking to the old AI machine this morning. So DeGods minted for 3 SOL in 2021. I believe SOL was about $30 back then, and rocketed to over 500 SOL at their peak. Rare sales topped out at $200,000+. Alongside it came Utes, a sister project with its own allow list hype, and then Dust, a utility token meant to power the entire ecosystem. Sounds good on paper, but just never landed the plane on all that. The DeGods universe was aggressive, ambitious, and led by loud Frank DeGods on the timeline. In 2023, DeGods migrated over to Ethereum, Utes moved to Polygon, and Dust bridged to ETH. But the momentum didn't hold. V4, their latest art update was delayed, floor slid, and Utes ended up moving back again to Solana. Then, of course, this week, Frank stepped down as CEO. He said he's not quitting NFTs, but he's out as the face of the brand. DeGods has touched nearly every major chain, Solana, Ethereum, Bitcoin, Polygon via Utes, and has launched its own token economy. But today, prices are down and leadership is changing, and it feels a bit like the end of an era. What's up next? What comes next? Feels like it's mostly up to the holders and the new leadership. And that was the more you know, brought to you by ENS. ENS does more than you know, not just anchoring your name across Web3, but anchoring it across the internet. It's your identity, simple, memorable, and unmistakably yours. Security, interoperability, and ease of use. Go to ens.domains to learn more and secure your ENS domain. Cap, take it, and then feel free to go straight to Jakarta.
No, Jakarta, go in and get in here. GM, thanks for jumping up.
You mean Jakarta?
GM.
Okay,
right.
so I just got a quick question because, when we all jumped into NFTs, I remember for me, it was beginning of COVID, right? And Bored Apes came out and it was really about collecting, not about building these massive empires, right? Then, of course, all this VC money flooded in. I know that Yuga raised $400 million from Sam Altman, which they didn't have to give back, as far as I know. And now it's like about building these huge empires. Like, we got to launch cryptocurrencies and we're going to launch a metaverse. And I mean, the bar is so extremely high. I have no idea how new projects can even bring anything to market with this massive bar. But also begs to wonder is what about, like, where we started creating NFTs for art's sake, right? Like the dude who was talking just said, DeGods has they got super cool art. Some of the DeGods are so amazing. I guess they got caught up in that building spree. They got to build and pivot and build and pivot and build. Bored Apes, at least they never pivoted. They moved, right? But I mean, do you think that this need to build a whole world is the future of NFT projects, or will we ever get back to collecting, just for art's sake, for having cool NFTs?
I mean, I think we still do to some degree. I don't think we ever get back to the mania of where there's multiple NFT mints a day. I don't think that was healthy by any. It was quantity over quality, and yeah, I think, I mean, especially on the higher end, the Sam Spratts, the X copy stuff, like that stuff is still selling at really premium prices. It's what do you like if you're a high net worth individual and you like collecting art, like I think that stuff still hits. If you like collecting prints, you can still do that as well. It's not the idea of buying a print for a free open edition and it running to tens of thousands of dollars. That's just silly. And that was just over hyper financialized crazy speculation. But yeah, I think there's that element of collecting art and what could be, but it's just one small sector of the technology that is NFTs.
Right, but it's where we're coming from, right? It was, I mean, people didn't buy their Bored Apes thinking they would go to 100K, right? They bought them because they were dope, they were cool, they were collectible.
Sure.
Right?
So I mean, I would say, like, I'm biased. I still hold a couple, but I think that's happening right now with Good Vibes Club. I mean, it's a relatively new mint. Floor's running up to, I don't know, 0.7-ish. And it's more important than the floor. If you go look, majority of sales are not floors. There are people buying, collecting things they want to collect. And maybe I'm wrong. I don't think they're doing so with the expectation that it's going to run to 100 ETH. I think some of them are probably thinking like could be an NFT this cycle, but more so than any of that, my impression is that people are collecting it because they like the art, because they like the community, and I'll get lambasted for saying this, but it's giving me early Bored Ape Yacht Clubs vibes. To your point, it's like people weren't. Yeah, I didn't buy my Bored Ape Yacht Club because I thought it was going to run to $500,000. Thought never entered my mind. But it was cool people that I enjoyed hanging out with in this space, and it was something new, and there was fun stuff here, and it was just that to that sense. Like I think it still exists. It's just I don't know, because of kind of like the baggage that came with the Pico top and the bubble bursting. I think it might be a while before more new entrants start coming in for that sort of community.
Right. So we're growing up as a market as well.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think this is one of the reasons why I was, saying earlier about like, DeGods, like, it's like when I saw that announcement, I'm like, this feels like it's not grown up as a market, right? Like, I feel like I just mentioned earlier, like, I can tell you, like, Doodles is building AI. Well, go ahead.
Or we are, right? Because hey, the reality is, I think my read. I just looked. I sold I weaved my last Ute, March 6th of last year. Because I felt that's when Frank gave up. I felt it was over then. I had 3. I sold 2 of them for well like an ETH and a half. I held the one just because it was like the moon bag, and with the plans of like never selling it, just writing it to zero. But about last March, I don't even know what happened, but I was like, oh, this is over. He's not going to do anything with this. So while I think maybe we've grown up a little bit, and this maybe doesn't land as a great announcement, he probably should have done this a year ago. Like, I think it actually does show some maturity that he's actually is stepping down and giving some bit of closure there. No?
Yeah, I think so.
I'd agree.
I agree as
He's
well.
growing up, passing it on, not staying in there and rugging it to death. That's growing up.
No, he's doing the thing he did and has always done, which he's timed the market. The market is on an upcycle. It's on an upturn. And he's basically just been like, oh, this has been on the books probably for some amount of time. Today was decided the day where it was going to land the best for the longevity of the project.
It's probably a good take, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good take.
So you're right. He may have very well decided this a year ago when I thought he was done, and it's just they wanted to time it up better. And now it seems like NFTs are back, so good time to hand it off and start a new chapter, maybe.
Great time to exit. Market is high. Cut and run.
Yeah. And like there's going to be the least amount of blowback because it's not during a bear when that's what people would talk about and everything's running. Yeah, you're probably right, Jack. I guess like my point on that was less so that, and it was more so the point that you made, like Cap, and that you were making, Jashaka, which was like, yeah, man, it's like there's the market's growing up where, like I named it earlier, just do it again before we go to Jack real quick, but it's like, like your hate on, they're building an AI platform that's going to be powered by a token they're putting out. They're doing a completely different thing there, right? They're actually thinking about like what their business operational model is going to be there. And previous to that, they were selling packs or creating content, all those good things. When you look at Pudgy Penguins, you can see a clear direction of what they're doing, whether it's with Abstract, whether it's with the Pengu token, which they're continuing to dedicate to and not let die on the vine. And, obviously their global IP that they're trying to build and how they're building it. You look at VFriends, comic book, cartoons, cards, all the things they're doing. Gary showing up at card shows. People are flipping. These Topps Chrome cards are base cards, right? Like these cards are beautiful, these bases, right? Like they're like good looking cards, like these cards that I got on my desk. Like they're beautiful Topps Chrome cards. I got a couple of rares as well in my pulls. I have a few more packs to pull with the fam. It's like, that's fun. Like they're working on that. I mentioned Board Ape Yacht Club earlier, talked about them a little bit. It's like, Cleanosaurs is building out IP and building a game and doing a new sort of, all of these things are building very strongly. And then it's like, we're just going to fucking send it, bro. It's like, again, I'm not trying to like make fun of the new CEO. Like I'm rooting for them. Like I'm hoping that they do that. I'm hoping they make it like this decentralized frat that they always want to make it. And that's the vibe or whatever. But like, yeah, man, I mean, look at your timeline and look at the PFPs that you see and understand, like, when you look at those, you can give a reason for why all of those out of the thousands upon thousands, like Azuki's trying to build anime.com, regardless of what you think about, Azuki and the anime token, they're not taking anime.com lightly. Like anime.com is a very big potential site. They're trying to have these decentralized anime, company that they're like, all of these things are very real. And so I think you can go through all of these, brands. And I'm looking at my timeline. It's like I'm seeing basically these are the PFPs I'm seeing as I scroll down. Good Vibes Club. Again, we know who they are and what they're doing. I think all of these add up for a reason. And that's where I think that there is that's where I think it's like we just, saying just like, hey, we're just going to send it is. I think it's a different. I think it's just like I think that it's a 2021 playbook, and I think we've matured as a space. Jack, go ahead and get back in here, and then we'll go to Boston, then we'll probably wind down from there.
I've loved this show, guys. Like, this is the nostalgia for this show. Isn't it wild that like you guys have had a show that has been running for so long in a space that's like still very, very new, and it can cause people to get nostalgia? Like that's actually like, oh my God, the pat on the back you guys deserve for that. Crazy. But I actually wanted to, answer Jashaka's, I'm sorry if I'm butchering that. I'm British. I butcher every name. But like, love the initial question. And I think, look, NFTs are a tech at the end of the day. And I think the big thing that I have realized within the space, or at least how I collect in the space, as somebody who, has spent like thousands and thousands of dollars, even in the last like 6 months, on collecting NFTs, which I guess is probably a pretty ridiculous standpoint at this point for a lot of people. NFTs at their core are digital collectibles, and they're early conviction plays on teams entering frontier industries. Like that really like sort of sums up, in my opinion, like what the majority of at least the PFP NFTs currently are. And at the end of the day, I don't look at anything to do with planet Earth at the moment and think, oh, things might get less digital soon. Like AI is absolutely just making everything so much easier to be adapted and wrapped up into a digital world. Like we've got COVID has probably pushed us 10 years ahead in a timeline for people working more remotely than ever. So I think this idea that, NFTs have to be one individual thing isn't necessarily the case, but it is, teams trying to enter frontier industries, whatever that will mean in a digital space. So if they're trying to develop IP, then that's the world that they are building in. If they're trying to just develop a digital collectible series that is built on NFT technology, then that is within itself a niche within an industry. So I think it really just depends on how the team communicate themselves. But realistically, I do expect within the next decade, from gaming to digital collectibles to anime to AI to content creation to IP building, that there will be significant projects. I mean, projects that basically look like they have a monopoly on a certain industry that come from the NFT space. And if that is the case, then of course, yeah, like the world in which those businesses can be built on is really similar in my mind to saying in 2003, well, isn't a website just a website? Or isn't, a business being built on the internet just a business being built on the internet? We cannot possibly even fathom how variable that question is about NFTs, because it is, it's just a technology built on a blockchain that basically solves for a lot of things with AI there is a problem for. So yeah, that's just my take on that, Jashaka. I don't know if that like at all makes any sense to you, but that's why I still continue to collect in this space and still completely vary my idea of what a single NFT is worth.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you so much, dude.
Yeah, it's a good way of putting it. It's like it's not going to get less digital, right? Like I think that's a good way of putting it in the world. That we're not going to get less digital. We're only getting more, and so it's I think it's definitely a good thought. Let's go to Bossa, and then we will probably wrap out there.
Yeah, guys. First of all, appreciate it again. I think Jack already kind of spoke a lot of my thoughts, and I think Steve, you said it really well. I think when you look at Azuki, they have clearly found their North Star, and I feel like for DeGods, it might have gotten lost. You know, they might have gotten a little bit lost in the sauce a little bit along the way, and so I feel like if the team's objective though is strictly pump everyone's bags up again, oh man, that's like you're falling down a rabbit hole that is endless, and I feel like you're gonna have to constantly deliver in that. But if DeGods and this new team were to really find their North Star, find like that bigger purpose of what can DeGods truly, represent. In my opinion, I feel like DeGods is like my generation's crypto, bro. Like they do the whole drinking out of shoe thing, like do all the most craziest stuff at these events. And I feel like there's a persona for that. There's people outside of this space that can relate to that kind of craziness type of lifestyle, right? And not to say or promote it, but it's more so of like an identity, trying to get people to align with something. And so if I feel like that's what their North Star really is, and it's more of a lifestyle thing, right? Then I think they should pursue that. But the last thing I want again is just to strictly pump everyone's bags, and then everyone just dumps on each other and everyone just wants to exit, right? And then the project truly becomes dead then. But yes, I know you guys are wrapping up. I'll keep it short here, guys. Thank you so much for hosting the show. It's been a pleasure being here, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you jumping up, joining the conversation. Really appreciate the kind words and great to hear your voice. Jack, it's always a pleasure to hear your voice. You got I think some people may be sweating over your voice in the chat, saying it's soothing and calming, and you've been fun and frank all morning, and they're ready to ask you out on a date. Jack's taken, I think, anyway, still taken. So sorry, ladies. But no, in all seriousness, really, really great to reminisce a little bit. Great to have you back. You're both always welcome. Stage is open, and I thought we might fly over this conversation today, Steve. I was naive. I'm not even mad about it. It was a good conversation. And I want to thank like Rain and some others who critique Steve and I. I'm not like, I think we did fine in our coverage of Frank over the last couple of years, but we also don't want yes men. We want to make the show better. And certainly, I mean, we can disclaimer all we want. Hey, don't put any money in you can't afford to lose. Know that Steve and I likely hold tokens we talk about from time to time. We never want to lead anyone astray. And if someone bought a UT or a DeGod because of something we said positively about the brand on this space, that sucks. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. I mean, we do the disclaimer for a reason. It's your money, your decision, and we will share our opinions. Sometimes those are going to be complimentary and flattery, other times not. And just know that our style is likely it's not really our MO to drag people through the mud unless it's K-Row.
No, it's yeah, and glad Jack is getting a little love, but yes, he is taken by a lovely British individual. She actually, I remember, I think they said I'm like, she looks like a celebrity, but I can't pin it. And I feel like they pulled some like random British celebrity. He was like, yeah, she looks like Lady Arabella Featherstone Wiltshire Bubble Trousers, don't you know? And I'm like, no, not familiar, but it's cool that you have that look alike. She's like, yeah. She gets bubble trousers all the time on the street because of Lady Arabella. So, she's Featherstone Wiltshire, of course, of Scotland. So, but nobody knows that she grew up in London. But yeah, it's like those sorts of things. Anyway, but lovely. Got to spend time with him and his significant other.
I'm dying.
Was that a pretty good British name I got there?
It was so good.
Just doing my best to finish with a strong British name, but. That said, we'll let everybody sail off into their days, or into their day, and all their days for that matter. Appreciate everyone coming through this morning. We will talk to everybody bright and early tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Eastern time. Have a wonderful day, everybody.
My bad. Drop the phone. Kaido and Virtual's a collaboration announcement. We'll talk about that tomorrow. It's up top.
Let's do it. Cool.
Thanks for tuning into Coffee with Captain, powered by ApeCoin. We hope you enjoyed the show, and remember, nothing we discussed today is financial advice. Until next time, keep exploring, stay curious, and we'll see you soon. Have a great day.
Welcome to the future.